Robb Stark sits astride his great gray warhorse beneath an overcast sky. The air tastes of iron and ash, carrying the faint promise of distant rain that never quite falls. A hush settles over the wide field where the northern host has made camp. Canvas tents flap in a soft breeze, and the once trampled grass of late summer begins to show signs of autumn's yellowing. Robb's gloved hand tightens on the reins as he stares toward the south, his gaze distant, lost in thought. Word has arrived that the Tyrells have at last declared themselves for the king in the north, or so they name him. What had begun as improbable rumor grew into a series of coded letters, until at last a trusted emissary from Highgarden had come in the night. The Tyrell banners, golden rose on a field of green, would fly alongside the direwolf of House Stark, and together they would march on King's Landing. The notion still stuns Robb, and even with his mother's counsel urging caution, he cannot help but feel a spark of untempered hope. The smell of horses and men mingles with the memory of his father's voice, urging him toward honor and justice. He wonders if Ned Stark would have approved of this alliance, if the proud, unyielding values of the North can remain intact when commingled with Southern ambitions. His mother, Catelyn, had insisted that they talk terms with the Tyrells to shift the balance of power against the Lannisters. Without the Tyrell might, King's Landing would remain a fortress beyond his reach, an untouchable seat of power. But with Highgarden and the fertile fields of the Reach supplying men, provisions and gold, the possibility of victory has come sharply into focus. Still, he knows any alliance with the Tyrells is layered with subtlety and potential betrayal. The rose has thorns after all. He draws in a breath, urging his horse forward at a slow walk. Here in the war camp, spearmen lounge by their cookfires, gnawing on strips of salted meat. Archers fletch arrows beside battered wagons. The northern men glance up as Robb passes, their gazes respectful, their posture straightening. He is their king, younger than many of them, but proven in battle. Some of his lords ride alongside him. Lord Bolton's pale eyes flicker. Roose has said little about the Tyrell alliance. Lord Karstark's shoulders remain stiff, his face carved from stone, still mourning his lost sons. The great John is nowhere in sight. Likely he is deep in his cups, regaling men with boisterous tales. This is Robb's army, ragged yet resilient, hungry for the vengeance they have already tasted at Whispering Wood, at the Battle of the Camps, at Oxcross. Ahead, the largest tent sits, standards planted before it, the stark direwolf snapping in the wind. 2 Tyrell guards in plate, polished to a mirror shine, stand sentry. They are out of place among the simpler northern gear, but they carry themselves with the pride of knights who serve a great house. They nod as Robb dismounts. One calls out in a courteous, lightly accented drawl, "My lord," though he should say, "Your Grace." Robb half smiles, then passes inside without correcting them, though he senses the presence of that small oversight. There are so many details in forging alliances, so many missteps possible. Within the tent, the world grows small and warm. Oil lamps hiss softly. The smell of parchment and spiced wine mingles with sweat and steel. Seated at a makeshift table is Catelyn, her auburn hair bound in a tight coil. Across from her, the young widow Margaery Tyrell sits poised in a gown of forest green. Robb's gaze travels over her. She is slender and graceful, her dark curling hair framing a composed face. If rumors are to be believed, Margaery was once wed to Renly Baratheon. Now she has risked much by parleying with the Starks. Though her grandmother, the famed Queen of Thorns, is said to be the true power in House Tyrell, it is Margaery who has come north as an emissary, forging a pact that could reshape the 7 kingdoms. "Your Grace," Margaery says, dipping her head in a bow that is almost demure. "I trust you found our men of use along your journey?" Robb moves to the table, nodding once. "We're pleased by their discipline. They've comported themselves with honor, Lady Margaery." He glances toward Catelyn, whose watchful eyes miss nothing. "Have we settled on final terms?" he asks softly, tension underlying his voice. Margaery's smile is every bit as delicate as a rose, her words carefully measured. "It appears so. My family pledged your cause, and in return, we share in the spoils. Our men march with yours, and you are to be crowned king in the north, as well as, if it comes to pass, the rightful king of the 7 kingdoms. In time, of course. She takes a careful sip of wine. Though your mother has made it clear that your primary aim is justice against those who harmed your family. He notices the faint flicker of grief on Catelyn's face. The memory of Ned's execution lingers between them, a raw wound still. Robb's jaw tightens, and he allows the silence to speak for a moment. Yes. Justice for my father, for the North's lost sons. The Iron Throne means little if it is won without honor. But once the false King Joffrey is undone, we shall see what arrangement is best for the realm. He glances at Margaery. Until then, your support is invaluable. Outside, a distant horn sounds, low and resonant. The meeting draws to a close. The Tyrell lady and the mother of the king in the north exchange small pleasantries, discussing supply lines, troop movements, and coded messages that must be sent to Highgarden. Robb listens, adding his input only when necessary. He can sense an undercurrent to Margaery's every word. She is no naive young bride. She is cunning and charming, forging alliances with graceful efficiency. He cannot help but think that if she were an enemy, she would be a fearsome one indeed. Night falls swiftly, and the campfires blaze. Across the field, the banners of the Stark direwolf mingle with the golden roses of Tyrell. Men break bread together, talking in hushed voices of what lies ahead. The notion of marching on King's Landing, that seat of Lannister power, with Tyrell might behind them, still feels like a fantasy. Yet come the morning, they will strike camp and begin that slow, inevitable push southward. Word is that Tywin Lannister has been forced westward, with the combined might of the Reach threatening his flank. For once, the proud lion is retreating, a forced move to defend the heart of his own territories. That leaves the capital vulnerable, or so their new Tyrell allies claim. At the heart of the camp, Robb meets with his bannermen in council. The Great John's booming laughter is subdued for once, replaced by a contemplative nod as he eyes a map pinned to the table. Roose Bolton says little, but his cold gaze tracks each shift in strategy. Lord Karstark's lips press in a thin line, brooding and silent. Meg Mormont stands, arms folded, a mother bear among wolves, ready to speak her mind. They are discussing the best approach to King's Landing when Lord Randall Tarly, the Tyrell general, enters. He carries himself stiffly, but there is no mistaking the formidable warrior who stands before them. Rumors say Tarly once bested Robert Baratheon in single combat, though Robert had been unearnest and half drunk. Still, Tarly's presence commands respect. Our scouts report that the Lannisters have pulled much of their strength west, toward the Gold Road. Tarly states, his clipped tone at odds with the relaxed posture of the northern lords. King's Landing's garrison remains, but without Lord Tywin's army, the city has only the remnants of the City Watch, some loyal bannermen, and the Hound, if he's still inside those walls. Our host combined with yours should be sufficient to lay siege. With the Tyrell supply lines, we can starve them out. Or we could attempt a swift assault, though that would be bloody and uncertain. The Great John smacks a fist into his palm. Storm the gates and make the false king tremble. We'll pull Joffrey off the Iron Throne and let the crows have what's left of him. The men around him grunt in approval, though some of the older or more cautious lords exchange wary glances. Bolton's expression flickers as though he can already see the blood that would be spilled on the city's walls. Tarly's gaze shifts to Robb. The choice is yours, your grace. We will do as you command, but know that if the city does not yield quickly, we stand to lose many good men in a direct assault. Robb studies the map. King's Landing is ringed by walls, with the formidable Red Keep perched atop Aegon's high hill. The Mud Gate, the Lion Gate, the King's Gate, these are more than stone archways. They are wards that can funnel an army into a deadly gauntlet. And beyond them, thousands of desperate small folk and potential reinforcements from the sea. He closes his eyes for the briefest of moments, recalling his father's unwavering moral compass. Could Ned have sanctioned a siege that might starve the innocent as well as the guilty? Could he stomach the thought of all the small folk trapped behind those walls, used as living shields by the Lannisters? He pushes the thoughts aside and speaks at last. "We'll advance cautiously, and if we can coax the city to yield, all the better. But we have come too far and lost too much to turn back now. We take King's Landing. We end the false reign of Joffrey Baratheon, and we show the realm that northern justice can be tempered with mercy, but unwavering in purpose." The war councils drag on into the small hours. Men come and go with messages. Casks of wine are tapped and emptied. Worn maps are traced and retraced. By the time the candles have burned low, Robb's eyes grow heavy, and he dismisses the lords. One by one they file out, hushed and contemplative, each mind swirling with the future battles. His mother lingers, placing a warm hand on Robb's shoulder. "You must rest, my son," Catelyn says gently. "Tomorrow begins a march unlike any other. You must be strong." Robb nods, feeling for a moment the boy he was not so long ago. His father's name echoes in his mind. Eddard Stark. A moment later, the memory of Grey Wind pacing at his side drifts through him as well. But Grey Wind was lost at the twins in this grim version of events. No, wait, no official mention. Let us hold the direwolves close in thought. His mind flickers across all that he has lost. His sisters taken captive. Or so he believes. His father's head on a spike. The uncertain fates that swirl around the realm. He stands, wearing the mantle of a king, trying not to let the weight of it crush him. "I will rest, mother. You do the same. We have a long march ahead." At first light, the camp stirs to life. Horses snort and paw the ground, carts creak under the load of supplies. Men gulp down whatever meager breakfast they can manage. Oats boiled with onions, or day-old bread softened with ale. Drums echo across the dew-soaked grass. Standards are unfurled to catch the damp morning breeze. Robb stands in his armor, buckling the thick leather straps across his chest as Grey Wind stands watchful at the edge of the tent. The direwolf's eyes glint in the early light, and Robb draws courage from the bond he shares with his beast. The combined armies of the North and the Reach begin to move, a slow river of steel and sinew winding southward. The Tyrell Knights, astride proud destriers, form shining vanguards, their banners vivid with golden roses. The northern men march beside them, some on foot, some mounted on tough, shaggy horses from the icy moors. The clamor is both exhilarating and daunting. Robb rides near the front, flanked by his mother and Marguerite Tyrell in a well-guarded litter behind him. Though Marguerite often insists on riding her own mare, she smiles at the men, offering words of encouragement. Some openly admire her beauty. Others murmur jokes about how strange it is to see southern ladies among northern steel. But day by day, step by step, that difference begins to feel less like a gulf and more like part of a unified host. Winter roses, some call them in jest, referring to this alliance of direwolves and golden blooms. The days begin to blur. They move through weathered villages and farmland, where ravens wheel in the sky, announcing their approach. Occasionally, they pass refugees fleeing the war, tired mothers carrying babes, old men pushing carts. Robb cannot ignore their haunted eyes. Word spreads like wildfire that the king in the north marches south with the Tyrells. The small folk scramble from the roads, uncertain whether to treat them as liberators or raiders. Robb tries to keep strict discipline, punishing any man who steals or harms the small folk. He cannot prevent every cruelty, but he does what he can. Marguerite, in her compassion, sometimes arranges for extra bread to be distributed in the camps they pass, much to her men's chagrin. She warns, however, that too many handouts will slow them. At night, the lords gather to plan. Occasional ravens from the west bring tidings. Tywin Lannister is fortifying Harrenhal or perhaps regrouping near River Run's outskirts. The King's Landing garrison remains unreinforced, though the Hound's presence is rumored to keep order in the city. Queen Cersei is said to be in a panic, the small council in disarray. No one knows what the imp, Tyrion Lannister, has planned. The city, they say, is on the brink of chaos, and Joffrey grows more sadistic by the day. Dark stories trickle out, the heads of perceived traitors left on spikes, random punishments in the streets. Robb feels his anger flare. The urge to free the city from Joffrey's cruelty grows within him. tempered only by the knowledge that a siege is no small matter. The nights stretch long, and sometimes Caitlin tries to speak sense into him. If the city surrenders at the sight of our host, you must accept. Avoid bloodshed if we can. The realm is broken enough. Robb nods, but part of him suspects that the Lannisters will not yield so easily. Not while Joffrey lives, or Cersei breathes. The Tyrell men whisper among themselves, uncertain of the Northerners' temperament. The Northerners, for their part, remain guarded around their new allies, well aware that House Tyrell once pinned its hopes on Renly Baratheon, and might just as easily betray Robb if a better offer arises. But Margaery's presence soothes some rifts. She speaks softly with the Northern lords, praising their valor and telling them of how her own father and brothers have come to admire the Stark's sense of honor. The great Jon roars approval when she compliments his sword arm. Even the taciturn Bolton and Karstark appear faintly swayed by her carefully chosen words. A small measure of trust begins to bloom between the once distant allies. Robb remains at the center of it all, the axle around which this wheel of war turns. He wonders how many nights he will still dream of home, of Winterfell's walls, of the hot springs steaming in the courtyard, of his younger brothers sparring with wooden swords. The more ground they cover, the further that memory drifts. Perhaps he thinks grimly, the only way forward is to seize King's Landing, to end this Lannister menace once and for all. A fortnight passes in endless tramping of boots and hooves. The weather grows warmer. By the time they reach the fertile plains south of the Blackwater, the Tyrell supply wagons become critical, distributing bread and salted fish among the northern men who struggle with the southern heat. Scouts ride ahead, returning with news that King's Landing lies scarcely 3 days' march away. Tension spikes within the camp that evening. Men sharpen their blades. Priests of the old gods and the Seven quietly offer blessings. Nightmares of siege warfare, of wildfire beneath the city, of Red Keep archers on the walls, plague the uneasy sleepers. Robb stands apart from the others, gazing at the distant torchlights of a small hamlet. Grey Wind is at his side, silent and watchful. Footsteps approach, and he turns to see Margaery. She wears a cloak of green over a simple linen gown, her hair pinned up. Even in the dim starlight, she seems composed, as though the threat of battle merely quickens her pulse in a strangely invigorating way. "Your Grace," she murmurs, her voice low. "Pardon my intrusion. I wish to see how you fared before the assault." He hesitates before replying. "I fare as any soldier might, my lady. We are near the city. Perhaps only the gods know what awaits us." "Nay." She steps closer, so that her face is briefly illuminated by the glow of a distant torch. "Do you truly believe King's Landing will surrender at the sight of your banners? The people inside those walls might turn on Joffrey. Yes, but the Lannisters' hold on the city runs deep. Cersei is cunning, and she will do anything to keep power." Robb exhales. "I expect they will make us bleed, if they can, but I hold out some hope that the small folk who have suffered under Joffrey might see us as liberators." He rubs a hand across the back of his neck. "Though I would not gamble on it." She nods. A silence falls between them, filled by the gentle rustle of wind through the nearby trees. Grey Wind sniffs the air, ears perked. Margaery's gaze drifts to the direwolf, then back to Robb. "You are not like many men I have met, Robb Stark," she says softly, a note of sincerity in her tone. "You do not relish this, and yet you move forward because you must." Her words stir a pang of longing for the boy he once was, the boy who dreamt of nothing more than a future as Warden of the North, loyal to the crown his father served so faithfully. Now the crown rests upon Robb's own head, a heavier burden than he ever imagined. "There is no other path," he says at last. "We must see this through. I cannot allow my father's killer to sit the Iron Throne." He does not mention that he also fights for Sansa and Arya, for the North's freedom, for a chance to restore some semblance of justice to a realm gone mad. Margaery inclines her head. "As must we, for the Tyrells have seen what a Lannister alliance brings us. Betrayal, ruin, and chaos." Her lips curve into a slight, sardonic smile. Renly was my husband, however briefly. But in that time, I saw how greed and ambition can twist even the most noble-seeming goals. The Lannisters. They are something far more dangerous. She glances away, as though measuring her words. Perhaps together we can steer the realm toward a different future. He studies her face, unsure of the complexities beneath that composed exterior. In a world where alliances shift like sand, trust does not come easy. And yet, in Margaery's eyes, he sees a genuine spark of empathy. They stand together in silence for another moment. Then Grey Wind lets out a soft chuff, breaking the spell. Robb bows his head slightly. "We will do our best, Lady Margaery." "Do so," she says. "For tomorrow we march." The army sets out at dawn, forging forward until the waters of the Blackwater rush lie before them. The city stands on the far bank, its walls rising like a jagged crown. Even from a distance, the Red Keep looms atop the highest hill, a testament to Targaryen ambition from centuries past. The harbor is alive with ships, though many appear battered or burned from previous skirmishes. The smell of salt and mud wafts across the river. Robb halts at a vantage point just beyond arrow range, his men fanning out. Tyrell outriders gallop along the banks, assessing the best places to ford or cross with boats. They will likely move upstream, away from the city's direct defenses, and find a suitable crossing. Already, the outline of the Gate of the Gods beckons in the distance. They may camp that afternoon, out of range of the city's scorpions and archers. From his tent, Robb can see the sprawl of King's Landing, so many cramped buildings, so many hungry mouths. He notices columns of smoke from the poorer districts. The city is restless, uneasy. He wonders if they will fling open the gates, or if they will fight to the last. That evening, Tyrell trumpets sound from atop a gentle rise. The war horns answer, echoing across the plain. Men scramble to fortify their positions. Ziga towers and rams, built in sections during the march, are pieced together by skilled carpenters. Catapults are checked and tested. The Great John guffaws at the sight of so many contraptions, while Bolton's mild smile betrays his cool calculation. Tarly inspects each piece, ensuring no mistakes will hamper their approach. A hush falls over the ranks as twilight deepens. Robb gathers his key commanders around him once more. "We'll approach the city gates from 3 points, he explains, pointing at the scrawled map. "Tarly's men will lead the siege at the King's Gate, drawing out the garrison. Our northern infantry will move near the Mud Gate, ready to hold the flank and cut off retreat. The Tyrell cavalry will remain in reserve, ready to ride in once the gates are breached, or if the Lannisters attempt a sally." Roose Bolton nods. "Dine. And you, your grace?" Robb squares his shoulders. "I will be at the Mud Gate. If Joffrey tries to flee by ship, we'll intercept him. We cannot allow him to escape. I do not relish the thought of him as a fugitive king, raising armies in some far corner of the realm." Catelyn, standing just beyond the lamplight, presses her lips thin but says nothing. She knows her son's mind is set. Margaery steps forward, her voice measured. "The Tyrell footmen and archers can support both flanks. Our supply lines are established across the reach. If the siege takes longer than expected, we will have the resources to outlast them. But if there is any chance to end this swiftly, we should take it. The city is rife with tension. We may not need to starve them if they turn against Joffrey themselves." Menin. The lords nod in agreement. No one wants a prolonged campaign of attrition if it can be avoided. The horror stories of Maegor's Holdfast or Aerys Targaryen's wildfire caches haunt their minds. A quick victory would spare countless lives. Yet Siga warfare seldom cooperates with hopeful hearts. Catelyn speaks then, her voice careful. "Let us not forget that King's Landing holds many innocents. If our men break into the city, we must prevent needless slaughter. Our aim is the Lannisters, not the small folk." Tarly inclines his head. "We shall do our best to keep discipline, my lady." With the plan set, they disperse. Robb remains by the table, gazing at the map of the city's walls and towers. He can almost picture the glint of torchlight on steel as the defenders gather, crossbowmen on the ramparts, gold-cloaked watchmen lining the gates. He wonders if Tyrion Lannister, cunning as he is, might appear with some devilish scheme, or if the hound will prove a formidable foe in single combat. He does not yet know of the fates of Sansa or Arya, though rumors place Sansa still a hostage in the Red Keep. That knowledge tightens his chest. He must succeed, or he could lose more than just a throne. Morning dawns, sullen and gray. A light fog clings to the river, wreathing the city in an otherworldly veil. Trumpets blare as the army rouses, the smell of boiled oats and tension filling the air. Men check their armor straps, coax their horses, gather in ranks. Ziga engines creak into position. Robb, astride his gray warhorse, surveys the lines. The Great John roars encouragement, sword held high, leading a contingent of heavy infantry. Tarly's banners flutter in the breeze, the golden rose shimmering as knights urge their mounts forward. From the city walls, horns answer back, brash and defiant. A ripple of anticipation shudders through the host. This is the moment. Every man present knows that by nightfall, blood will have been spilled in earnest. Robb raises his sword. The northern horns blast forth, echoing across the plain. Men shout the name of the king in the north, clashing sword against shield. The Tyrell men, more disciplined, grip their lances and ready their bows. Together, this improbable alliance begins its slow advance on King's Landing. At the forefront, catapults are hauled by straining oxen, while shield walls form in tight columns behind. The world seems to shrink to the pounding of feet, the clank of armor, the hiss of wind. Anxiety coils in the pit of Robb's stomach, a sense of finality that time is sliding toward an uncertain but inevitable conclusion. They close the distance, and the city's defenders become visible on the battlements, no more than dark silhouettes at first. Then arrows begin to fly. The first volley arcs high, falling short in the damp morning air. A faint cheer erupts from the northern ranks, though it dies quickly when the next volley comes closer. The air hums with the deadly whine of missiles. Shields are raised. A few men cry out as arrowheads find flesh. The siege engines rumble onward. From his vantage, Robb can see the Tyrell banners splitting off, heading east to the King's Gate, as planned. He keeps his focus on the Mud Gate, which stands in the southwestern stretch of the city walls. He senses the murky waters of the Blackwater rush nearby, a reminder of the potential chaos if the defenders attempt to use wildfire or scorpion bolts. So far, no sign of that dreaded green flame, but he cannot assume it won't emerge. The lines press forward, and the capital looms, a monolith of stone, wood, and fear. Even from here, Robb thinks he can sense the city's heartbeat, the pounding of thousands of feet within those walls. Tension crackles in the air like a storm about to break. Men fall on both sides, though the defenders have yet to sally forth. Rather, they seem content to riddle the attackers with arrows. But the northern shields hold firm, and the Tyrell crossbowmen answer in kind, sending bolts up into the crenellations. The siege towers approach now, inching forward on heavy wooden wheels. Under covering fire, men push them, straining every muscle. A great, splintering crash sounds as a section of the wall near the King's Gate takes a catapult stone. More cheers rise. Robb urges his men to hold formation. He sees the Great John wave him onward, a great grin splitting his bearded face despite the rain of arrows. The clang of steel on steel begins to echo as the first wave of men attempt to scale the walls with ladders, only to be pushed back by swords and spears from above. Through the swirl of chaos, Robb presses forward, his heart hammering. He can hear gray winds snarling at his side, the direwolf's hackles raised. The gate is a towering structure of old oak, banded with iron. The defenders have their own catapults behind the walls, launching rocks down onto the heads of the men below. Screams resound. The stink of blood stings the air. Still, the lines keep moving. A loud roar signals the rams being brought up to smash at the thick wood. Then, at a cry from a Tyrell captain, archers surge forth to provide covering fire. Arrows hiss into the arrow slits. Spears bristle from ramparts. The momentum of battle begins to surge, unstoppable as a tide. Robb finds himself in the thick of it, shouting commands. He and his men cluster behind massive pavises while the ram smashes into the gate. Thud-dud-ee. Thud-dud-wah. The wood groans but does not give. A pot of boiling oil splashes down, scattering men. One screams, consumed by pain, rolling on the ground in agony. Robb hisses through his teeth. He motions for more archers to take aim at the defenders. The ram resumes its pounding. Shielded by Tyrell crossbows, the northern soldiers press the assault. The noise is deafening. The crack of timber, the clamor of men, the guttural cries of the wounded. Robb raises his sword, rallying those around him, urging them not to falter. This is the crucible that will decide the fate of the realm. He tells himself, forcing steel into his spine. A final swing of the ram, and a sickening snap. Then a crash. The gate starts to buckle, splinters flying. Another impact, and it caves inward. A wave of northern infantry surges forward, roaring. But the Lannister men inside fight back with savage desperation, pikes brace to skewer the first ranks. Blood spatters the ground, turning the mud slick. Soldiers collapse with screams. Others climb over the bodies, driven by their king's presence and the taste of victory so near. Robb slips through the breach with a knot of his personal guard around him. Inside the gatehouse, the darkness is lit by flickering torches. Grey Wind is at his side, snarling at any Lannister guard who dares approach. The swirl of close combat engulfs them all. Robb parries a sword thrust, driving the point of his blade into a guard's abdomen. The man falls, gurgling. Another leaps at him with an axe, only to have Grey Wind clamp onto his leg, dragging him screaming to the ground. All around, men clash in a cramped warren of stone corridors. Step by step, the attackers force their way deeper, seeking to open the city's gates fully from within. A war horn brays somewhere outside, joined by shouts that the king's gate is ablaze. The Tyrell men must have ignited part of the defense. Smoke curls through the air. Robb coughs, pressing forward. At last, the gatehouse inner mechanism is seized by half a dozen northern soldiers. They hack at the chains that keep the portcullis raised, fumbling to jam it open. A raucous cheer arises as the wide wooden gates swing precariously, letting in the flood of Stark and Tyrell soldiers from outside. Robb catches his breath in the courtyard just beyond. They have breached King's Landing, or at least the Mud Gate. But the city beyond is a maze of narrow streets and stone walls. The Red Keep looms in the distance, still an imposing fortress. Chaos envelops them. Smoke from burning buildings drifts on the wind. Civilians huddle in alleyways, eyes wide with terror. Some try to flee. Others beg for mercy. Robb quickly orders his men, "No looting. Any man who rapes or robs will be punished. We are not beasts." He feels the weight of thousands of frightened souls around him, the city groaning under the strain of war. But he knows that not all of his men will heed that command, and it twists his gut with dread. This is how wars are won and lost, with brutality that cannot be fully contained. Before he can lament that truth for long, another knot of Lannister guards charges. The clash resumes, steel ringing on steel. The battle for King's Landing has well and truly begun, and Robb Stark, king in the north, stands at its heart, forging a new chapter in the bloody history of the Seven Kingdoms. He can only hope that amid the screams and smoke, a chance for mercy and justice still remains. Okay. The clash continues in tight corridors as Robb pushes deeper into King's Landing. His breath comes hard from beneath the rim of his helm, and sweat slips down his temples despite the morning chill still clinging to the air. Blood streaks the flagstones around him. A swirl of bodies in battered armor presses forward, swords glinting in the half-light of the torches snatched from the walls. The faint reek of smoke from the burning King's Gate area drifts through the passages. Promising chaos has spread along the outer ramparts. Grey Wind stays close, the direwolf's muzzle stained with gore, teeth bared at each new threat that lunges through the dark. With every slash of steel and guttural cry, the corridors echo, funneling the din of battle as more and more of Robb's men flood in. He shouts for them to keep formation to clear the gatehouse, so the main body of troops can secure entry points into the city. Some of his soldiers plant stark banners upon the ramparts they seize, the direwolf snapping in the shifting breeze. At times the wind carries the distant blare of Tyrell horns. The King's Gate must still be under a heavy assault. The swirl of battle is immense, each pocket of combat like a spark lighting a larger blaze. Robb glances back to see his mother, Catelyn Stark, being ushered in by a cluster of loyal guards. She does not bear arms, but she wears mail under her cloak, and her face is grim. One of the guards tries to guide her towards safer ground outside the immediate fighting. She shakes her head sharply, refusing to retreat until the corridor is secure enough. Robb has no time to argue, turning instead to bat away a spear thrust. The spear's metal tip scrapes against the rivets of his armor. He knocks the weapon aside, steps in, and drives the pommel of his sword against the attacker's face. The gold-cloaked man crumples with blood gushing from his broken nose. Another lunge from behind forces Robb to twist away, only to see the assailant suddenly wrenched to the ground by Grey Wind's fangs. "Forward!" Robb bellows. He can scarcely hear his own voice amid the crash of steel and echo of men's screams. "Take this corridor. Keep pushing." Newton, his own warband, a mixture of Karstark spearmen and Umberfoot soldiers, hacks through the last cluster of defenders. The corridor opens into a small courtyard, a patch of open sky overhead. There, half a dozen archers in Lannister livery attempt to let loose arrows, but the Northerners swarm them before they can notch many shafts. The fight is short and brutal, leaving 2 of the archers bleeding out on the flagstones, the others captured or dead. Robb breathes hard, eyes scanning the rooftops for any sign of fresh assault. Smoke pours up from somewhere beyond a row of stone buildings. The city within these walls is a labyrinth of narrow streets, twisting alleyways, half-timber houses built against one another in precarious stacks. Hundreds of thousands live in King's Landing, and now each street might harbor either terrified smallfolk or a nest of desperate defenders. Robb knows the real fortress is the Red Keep, perched on Aegon's high hill. That is where Joffrey likely cowers, along with Cersei and whatever loyal members of the King's Guard remain. But to reach it, Robb and his men must navigate through a warren of potential ambushes. Still, the gates are in northern hands, if only tenuously. He spares a glance around, chest rising and falling. Bolton's men were to reinforce the gate. Has anyone seen them? He calls this to a nearby group of Stark soldiers. They look between themselves uncertainly, panting, battered. One man with a bandage across his brow answers, "Last I saw." The Dreadfort men were shifting to hold the outer walls. They might still be clearing them. Robb nods, tension in his jaw. He knows Roose Bolton for a careful tactician, a viper who only strikes when assured of success. Perhaps that caution will serve them well now, ensuring no Lannister reinforcements retake the gates from behind. Still, it leaves Robb's current push undersized. He looks to his mother, who stands among a cluster of guards, pale but resolute. "Mother, stay close. We'll push further into the city. If we can secure the district near Flea Bottom, we might pacify any potential riot or sabotage behind our lines." She presses her lips together, a flicker of fear in her eyes, but she nods. "I will stay at your side, Robb. But remember, if the city yields, if the small folk turn on Joffrey, we must be prepared to receive their surrender. We are conquerors only in the name of justice, not slaughter." Robb knows she speaks the truth. Already, he's seen the glint in some men's eyes, the lure of looting. War is ugly, and controlling the worst impulses of a victorious army is rarely simple. But he steels himself. "Any man who breaks discipline answers to me." He places a gauntleted hand on her shoulder briefly, the touch of a son needing his mother's comfort, even if just for a heartbeat. In the adjoining courtyard, more Stark and Tyrell forces begin to trickle in, stepping warily over the corpses. A knight in gleaming green enamel armor, bearing the Tyrell sigil, raises his visor. Beneath, his face is flushed from exertion. He calls out, "Your Grace, we've secured part of the wharf district near the Mudgate. The gold cloaks have scattered into the streets. We might seize the docks entirely if we press now." Robb considers quickly. Seizing the docks would prevent Joffrey from fleeing by ship, but it might divide his forces if they spread out too thin. The docks must be held, he agrees. But keep your men in strong companies. The Lannisters can't stand against you in open battle. They'll favor ambushes or hidden choke points. Don't let them pick off small bands. The knight salutes, then barks orders to his men, who move with surprising discipline for those new to street fighting. Robb thanks the gods for the Tyrell's thorough training. The southern knights might not be as accustomed to the mud and grit of a city brawl, but they're well drilled and heavily armed. Once the courtyard is more or less secured, Robb leads his personal guard and a handful of bannermen into a side street heading deeper into King's Landing. Gray wind slips ahead, nose low. Hackles raised at the tang of fear that surely saturates the air. Doors and windows are shuttered. The stench of the city hits Robb's nostrils in full force. Rotting waste, sewage from open gutters, smoke from cooking fires, too many bodies crammed into too few streets. He hears distant screams, or perhaps cheers, from random corners. The city's fear is palpable. At a junction of roads lined by shabby taverns and boarded-up shops, they find a knot of Lannister redcloaks mustered behind overturned carts. The men have crossbows braced on crates. As Robb's group rounds the bend, a volley of bolts whips through the air. Two northern soldiers collapse. One moans, clutching a bolt in his gut. The other slumps, motionless. Shields. Robb shouts, raising his own to block an incoming bolt that ricochets off the metal. Gray wind's growl reverberates from behind the shielded line, impatient. Robb motions to a pair of archers at his flank. Up top, shoot from the second-floor window. Flush them out. The archers scramble into an abandoned inn that stands by the road. Robb hears their footsteps pounding on the inn's rickety stairs. Moments later, arrow shafts whistle downward, forcing the crossbowmen to duck. The redcloaks attempt to shift cover, but the northerners seize the opening to surge forward. Swords clash against spear tips. A sharp scuffle erupts around the carts, and one by one the Lannister men fall or surrender. Robb steps over an overturned barrel as he surveys the street. The cost of each skirmish is plain in the groans of the wounded and the wide eyes of civilians peering from cracks in shuttered windows. He gestures for his men to gather the captives. Some kneel, hands atop their heads, eyes full of mingled hatred and fear. "Where is your king?" Robb demands, voice low and steady. "Where is Joffrey?" None of the captured redcloaks answer at first. One eventually spits at Robb's feet. "He's in the Red Keep, you northern bastard, where you'll never touch him." Another growls in anger, but his words transform into a whimper when Gray Wind pads closer, nose sniffing at his bleeding arm. With a grin set to his jaw, Robb signals for the guards to disarm the prisoners. He will not stoop to butchering men who can be bound. Yet he can't spare many soldiers to escort them out of the city. For now, they corral them in the nearest stable, locking the door from outside, posted with a small watch of Tyrell men. He glances to the sky. The sun has risen higher, but the gloom of battle lingers. The city's structures casting long shadows across bloody street. Shouts of conflict echo from every direction, telling him that the fighting rages all across the outer districts. He pushes on, the dread knowledge lodged in his chest that the Red Keep will be the hardest nut to crack. He hopes the other gates are likewise falling. The King's Gate, the Dragon Gate, the Lion Gate. If the Tyrells, with their massed cavalry, can force multiple breaches, the defenders might fracture entirely. Yet Joffrey's personal guard will still cluster around the royal holdfast. The memory of his father's imprisonment in that cursed place churns in Robb's heart like molten lead. Too many nightmares lurk behind those walls. But that is where he must go if he's to secure any chance of saving his sisters and fulfilling his vow. As they advance along a broader avenue that leads toward the heart of the city, the clamor of fear grows more evident. Small folk stream through side alleys, arms wrapped around meager possessions or clutching children to their sides. Many recoil upon seeing armed men, and Robb calls out, "Stay calm. We are here for the Lannisters, not for you." Some slip away hurriedly. Others cast suspicious glares. The city watch, the gold cloaks. are nowhere to be seen here, likely having retreated to more defensible positions, or else they have thrown down their cloaks entirely to blend in and avoid the unstoppable tide. A handful of Tyrell bannermen catch up from behind, bearing fresh tidings. "Your Grace," one says, panting for breath, "Lord Tarley has the King's Gate under control. But the resistance there is stiff. We can't break through to the royal stables yet. Lannister archers and scorpions are set up on the walls." Robb nods, glancing at the massive shape of the Red Keep that looms up the hill. "Does he need us to reinforce?" The knight exhales. "Not yet, Your Grace. Lord Tarley says the main host can keep pressing in from the Mudgate. He suggests we secure Flea Bottom. He fears the city's rabble might turn violent or hamper our supply lines if they riot." Now, Robb remembers hearing of Flea Bottom's narrow, winding streets, prone to unrest. If that district falls into pure chaos, it could be a hazard for all. "Very well," he says. "We'll push west and cut north, try to encircle the district. Lord Tarley can handle the main roads if the King's Gate is secure." The knight salutes and hurries away, leaving Robb to weigh the next move. The Great John, sweaty-faced and wild-eyed from combat, marches up with a grin. "Your Grace, we've pinned a handful of Lannister knights in the next square. They tried a cavalry charge, but these streets are too cramped for that nonsense. We gave them a proper welcome." His booming laughter echoes, though flecked with tension. Robb musters a faint smile. "Did you leave any alive?" "Half a dozen, maybe. Some tried to run off, but they'll have trouble outrunning my men." He wipes his brow, leaving a streak of blood that isn't his. "We might join forces and press up the Street of Flower from here. If we keep moving, we'll soon reach the backside of Flea Bottom. Once that's in hand, the eastern approach to the Red Keep is ours." "Made." Robb nods. "Good. Let's do that. Keep the men in line, Greatjon. No needless killing." The Greatjon winks, though his face is solemn when he replies. I understand. Orders from the king. We're not beasts." They set off together. Catelyn remains at her son's side, flanked by Karstark men who guard her fiercely. Robb glimpses the anguish in her eyes each time they pass a corpse in the street, be it soldier or civilian. War spares no one, but still she marches on, spine stiff with a mother's determination. As they angle toward Flea Bottom, the air grows thicker with smoke. Shouts ring out from rooftops where citizens, or perhaps bandits, are taking advantage of the pandemonium. Robb sees shadows flit across broken windows, some carrying crude weapons. A handful fling stones or bricks at the passing soldiers. One chunk of masonry crashes against a Stark man's helm, sending him to the ground. Another, furious, tries to charge into a building after the culprits, but Robb halts him. "We don't have time to chase shadows. Stay focused. Keep moving." Then, in the next bend of the street, they stumble upon a chaotic scene. A group of gold cloaks stands in a ring, swords drawn, faced off against a ragged mob of small folk. The crowd appears half-starved, brandishing clubs or kitchen knives, though they wear no uniforms. At the sight of Robb's men, both sides freeze. The gold cloaks turn wide eyes on the advancing northern host. One of them, an officer judging by his studded gorget, shouts, "Back off! These wretches are looters, criminals. They burned the storehouse." Immediately, the small folk cry out, "They starved us. We only took bread. They attacked us." Confusion reigns. Several among the crowd are injured or collapsed. A woman holds a limp child in her arms. Smoke pours from a building just beyond, the shattered remains of a granary or storehouse. Robb curses under his breath. Each moment wasted on street conflicts is a moment the Lannisters tighten their hold on the Red Keep. He raises his voice, firm and resonant. "Put down your weapons, both sides. We have come for the Lannisters, not to spill innocent blood." The gold cloak officer hesitates, glancing from the heavily armed group of northerners to the desperate throng. He knows he's outnumbered, knows that if he resists, the next breath might be his last. Slowly, he lowers his blade. Some of his men follow suit. The crowd of small folk stares at Robb with a mixture of fear and awe. Anyone who surrenders will be spared, Robb announces, gaze flicking between gold cloak and peasant alike. We'll see to the wounded, but we cannot remain here. The storehouse is lost. Smoke drifts across his face as he gestures to the pile of charred rubble. The Great John moves to stand behind him, an imposing figure that helps quell arguments. A battered old man from the small folk side steps forward, voice trembling. Are you the Northern King? I am, Robb replies, though the weight of those words feels heavier than ever in that smoky, despairing street. I have no quarrel with you, if you're no friend to Joffrey Baratheon. The old man nods rapidly, tears filling his eyes. Then you're here to save us. Robb can't bring himself to spin illusions. We aim to remove the Lannisters from power. That's what I can promise. With those words, he motions for his men to disarm the gold cloaks. The officer tries to protest, but a Karstark soldier seizes his sword, pressing the point of a dagger to his cheek until he yields. A hush falls. A few small folk sob in relief, though others are wary, uncertain if new conquerors mean any improvement. Robb instructs them to disperse from this area, to get off the streets if they can. He has no illusions that each will obey, but a handful hurry away, dragging the wounded. Some of the gold cloaks remain under the watch of northern spears, stripped of weapons. One step at a time, Robb tells himself. He cannot fix the city's ills in a single morning. His priority remains the Red Keep. The Great John leads them down an alley that smells of rancid ale and unwashed bodies, stepping over crates and slop. Gray wind sniffs at garbage piles, occasionally bristling when a shape skitters through the shadows. They move in a wedge, swords drawn, mindful of ambush. Several times they hear quick footsteps behind them, but each time, Gray Wind's low snarl or the glare of northern soldiers sends potential attackers scuttling away. At last, they come upon the border of Flea Bottom, marked by an even tighter cluster of decrepit hovels. Smoke from cooking fires mingles with the haze from distant burning storehouses. Overhead, laundry lines crisscross between leaning buildings. People are huddled on stoops or behind piles of crates. Fear rules here. No sign of organized resistance, just desperation. The Great John halts his men, scanning the rooftops. We can't search every damned alley, he growls. We'll be at this for days. That's not our purpose, Robb answers. We need to ensure no large host is forming behind us. If they stay quiet, let them be. We move on. He's about to signal the advance when a young boy, no older than 10, scrambles out from a narrow passage. Lord Stark, the boy calls breathlessly. He's filthy, wearing only tattered trousers and a stained shirt. Before anyone can stop him, he runs right up to Robb, eyes frantic. There's men with torches. They set a place on fire up near the next street. People are screaming. Namisai. Robb curses. Who are they? Lannisters. The boy bobs his head in a shaky gesture. Some gold cloaks. Some men in red armor. They were shouting about traitors. They got a big cart of pitch. A wave of fury crests inside Robb's chest. If the defenders are resorting to torching entire blocks to hamper the northern forces, King's Landing might become a charnel house. He looks to the Great John. We can't let them turn the city into ash. We'd risk losing half our men in a firestorm, not to mention how many small folk would die. Nine. The Great John nods, rubbing a sooty hand across his chin. Ay, we can't let them run wild. Let's root them out. We push that way and put a stop to it. Then we circle back. He points up a filthy lane. Robb's men form ranks again, telling the boy to get to safety. The boy scampers off, presumably to vanish into the labyrinth that he knows so well. Robb wonders how many children are lost in this city's madness. Another unanswerable question in a war of too many tragedies. They move fast. The stifling air of Flea Bottom grows heavier. Shouts and crackling flames beckon them forward. Soon they round a corner to find a group of red-armored soldiers dragging barrels of pitch from a wheeled cart. Fire leaps from the end of a brand, one man holds high. Several cowering smallfolk watch in horror, pinned in place by crossbow-wielding gold cloaks. Smoke from the blazing roof of a nearby building drifts across the lane in thick coils. A woman's wail rises from inside that burning structure. Robb sees red. "Form up!" he roars, voice echoing off the cramped walls. His men spring into action. The gold cloaks spin, surprised to see northern steel emerging from the murk. One tries to raise his crossbow, but a Stark archer's arrow slices into his shoulder. The crossbow clatters. Another gold cloak looses a bolt that slams into a northern soldier's leg, toppling him. But before the man can reload, gray wind is upon him. Savage. The red-armored soldiers rally for a moment, brandishing swords and spiked maces. Then the Grey Jun charges, swinging his warhammer with a roar, crushing a breastplate as though it were tin. Robb lunges past a cart, sword angled low. The brand-bearer tries to stab with his fiery torch, but Robb knocks it aside, the flames sputtering. He drives his blade forward. Metal meets flesh, cutting through the soldier's side. The brand clatters to the ground, bouncing across the stones in a flurry of sparks. Another man leaps at Robb, but gray wind intercepts, clamping powerful jaws around the soldier's forearm and shaking until bones snap. In moments, the ambushers are scattered or dead. Some try to flee back the way they came, only to meet a row of northern spears. The Great John, breathing heavily, leans over the cart of pitch. They meant to burn us out of Flea bottom, it seems. Robb looks toward the building already in flames. The conflagration is gaining strength, licking up the walls, fed by the city's tinder-dry boards. "We have to help those trapped inside," he says. Caitlin, watching from a short distance, steps forward in alarm. "Robb, it's too dangerous. They'll die if we don't," Robb snaps, and signals two men. "Find water, or tear down what you can to stop the fire from spreading. At least try to help them escape." "Nen to Norton." The men move without hesitation, trying to pry open the door of the burning structure. Smoke billows, forcing them to retreat after only a moment. Another tries to climb a rickety ladder to an upper window. Robb can do little else. Too many tasks call his name. Preventing more fires, advancing on the Red Keep, ensuring the army remains disciplined. The weight is suffocating. A short scuffle behind him draws his attention back to the pinned smallfolk. Some are on their knees, eyes tearing from smoke and fear. One, a young woman with singed hair, looks up at Robb with trembling lips. "They just came, started lighting torches. We had no place to go." Robb clenches his fists. He can offer only hollow reassurance. "Go. Leave this place if you can. Our men won't harm you." She glances at the burning building. "But my brother's inside." Her voice chokes, tears streaking her dirt-smudged cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispers, real sorrow bleeding through him. "We'll try." She scrambles away as the Great John barks for everyone to clear out before the flames spread to the next building. Already, ash and sparks drift in the thick air, swirling around them like angry fireflies. Robb's men manage to pry open the door at last, only to recoil from the inferno that roars out. A silhouette stumbles across the threshold, clothing aflame, wailing. A soldier hurriedly throws him to the ground and smothers the flames with a cloak. Soot and fear cling to every surface. Robb can't linger. A slender corridor of time exists if they mean to keep pushing. The city will burn around them if they lose momentum. Another whiff of scorched pitch and charred wood envelops him as he steels himself. "We have to keep going," he says to the Great John, voice cracking with the weight of responsibility. "Aye," the Great John replies hoarsely, turning to his men. "Leave a squad here to contain this damned fire if you can. The rest, onward." They press on, winding through the labyrinth of Flea bottom. The stench of burning pitch clings to their hair and clothes. Occasionally, Lannister loyalists or gold cloaks appear, but after short bursts of violence, they scatter. The city watch is fracturing, their morale broken by the relentless invasion, and perhaps by rumors that the Tyrell forces have seized the other gates. The crack and sizzle of distant fires punctuates the morning's gloom. Then, a distant commotion. Robb halts at the mouth of another street. From somewhere ahead, horns sound, a Tyrell flourish. Could Margaery or her family be near? He motions for quiet. The horns come again, echoed by a great shout. And in the next instant, a wave of men in green and gold livery sweeps into the street. Robb recognizes some of them as House Rowan's sigil among the Tyrell coalition. Their leader, a broad-shouldered knight in gilded armor, spots the northern band and signals for a halt. "Your Grace," the knight calls, voice rising over the tumult. "We've linked up with some of your men further to the south." The city watch is buckling, and half the Lannister forces have retreated toward the Red Keep. "We must converge on the main roads leading there." Robb's pulse quickens. They're consolidating their defense then. "Have you word of the King's Gate?" "Dalmau." "A messenger arrived not half an hour ago. Lord Tarley has broken through but is still encountering heavy resistance near the Dragon Pit. They're trying to circle around to the Red Keep from the east. He requests your presence if you can muster it, though he understands you may have another Robb exhales. "We'll try to link with him if possible, but this city is a maze. If we can cut through Flea Bottom and ascend the hill from the south, we might trap the Lannisters between us and Tarley's men." The Tyrell knight nods. "We'll follow your lead, Your Grace." "Good. Keep your ranks tight. No looting, no unnecessary cruelty." Robb's voice hardens. "We want the Lannisters dethroned, not the city burned or sacked." The knight bows in agreement. Together, they muster a larger column. Tyrell archers take up positions near the front, with northern spearmen providing close-in support. They move with renewed purpose, weaving through side streets that begin to slope upward. The Red Keep's battlements loom like a bloody crown ahead, half shrouded by the haze of battle. Robb's heart drums in his ears. This is where the real test awaits. The wide approach, known as the Street of the Sisters, leads up toward the main entrance of the Red Keep. By now, the defenders must be in place, crossbows and archers lining the walls, desperate to hold the fortress for Joffrey. If the rumors hold true, the Hound might be among them, a monstrous presence capable of turning men's veins to ice. But that's a fear Robb must face if he hopes to save his sisters. They make for the Street of the Sisters, forging a path through lesser lanes. Now and again, they catch glimpses of other columns of soldiers, some flying the wolf banner, others the golden rose, all converging on the city's seat of power. At each intersection, more battered or terrified small folk scatter out of the way. Scars of the fighting line every street, collapsed cart barricades, shattered windows, smoldering timbers. The capital has become a battlefield far more grim than Robb had anticipated. A shout from the vanguard rings out, "Incoming!" A volley of arrows descends from a rooftop not far ahead. The Tyrell archers return fire, as the rest form a shield wall. One or two men are hit before the archer nest is suppressed. They find a handful of Lannister guards and a motley group of crossbowmen who had taken up the position. The Great John storms the building with a party of Northerners, and soon the defenders lie dead. Another block, two more blocks. The path grows wider. At last, Robb sees the Red Keep rising. Crimson walls and high battlements. The towers framed by the smoky sky. The fortress perches on Aegon's high hill, looming over the city as though it were a separate realm. War horns echo from the courtyard that stretches beyond the walls, and the clang of steel is unmistakable. Some vanguard of Tyrell or northern troops must already be engaging the outer defenders. Robb presses forward, adrenaline knotting his stomach. Through the haze, he spots a broad set of gates leading to an open courtyard, ringed by thick walls. A spiked portcullis stands lowered. The parapets bristle with Lannister archers. Bolts and arrows slash down at any who approach. Bodies litter the approach, some wearing Tyrell sigils, others in northern colors. A handful of them lie halfway to the gate, pinned by arrows, or skewered by scorpion bolts. The stench of blood and dust mingles with the faint tang of the sea drifting in from the Blackwater. He signals the archers to return fire, then orders the Great John to bring forward the shields and rams. They'll have to breach this outer gate or find another route into the keep. With the city gates taken, the Red Keep remains the last true bastion for the Lannisters. Robb knows they'll fight like cornered beasts. Moments later, a gust of wind parts some of the smoke, revealing a cluster of knights in Tyrell green pinned behind an overturned wagon at the edge of the courtyard. One of them waves frantically, calling for aid. Robb waves back, encouraging them to hold on. Then he presses the attack. Northern soldiers and Tyrell archers, surge into the fringes of the open space, raising shields overhead as a deadly rain of arrows and quarrels descends. Here is the crucible. If they falter, the Lannisters will hold the Red Keep for days. But if they push through, Joffrey's end could come swiftly. Robb glances up at the battlements. He sees men in Lannister scarlet feeding scorpions with fresh bolts, aiming for the rams that are being dragged across the courtyard. "Archers, focus on those scorpions," he shouts, voice raw. A volley streaks upward, forcing the scorpion crews to duck. Another volley claims some Lannister defenders, sending them tumbling from the walls. His men roll a large wooden mantlet forward, inch by inch, toward the portcullis. The plan is to shelter behind it, then pry at the iron gate with crowbars, or use the ram if they can wedge it beneath. It's a brutal, slow process under continuous missile fire. The courtyard becomes a living hell of screams, splintered wood, the dull clang of arrowheads striking shields, fire crackles from braziers overhead, the defenders threatening to drop more burning pitch at any moment. Robb runs, half-crouched, beside the mantlet, urging the men forward. An arrow glances off his shoulder armor, leaving a stinging bruise. Another lodges in the rim of his shield. Gray wind darts from cover to cover, as though sensing the futility of direct assault. They're so close to the portcullis that Robb can see the thick iron bars, the space beyond overshadowed by the keep's looming walls. If they breach this, they'll be in the outer ward. Another layer or two, and they'll stand at the doors of the main keep itself. With a united heave, the men slam the ram's iron-shod tip against the portcullis. It vibrates with a metallic shriek, but does not give. Bolts hammer the mantlet. One soldier is struck in the thigh. He collapses with a ragged cry, and another man pulls him back, cursing. Robb seizes the ram's handle, ignoring the burning in his arms. He sets his jaw and swings. The crash resounds, echoing along the red stone walls. Again, a hoarse cheer from behind. Again, the bars bend slightly, but still hold. Another wave of arrows arcs down, spattering against the ground. Robb's shield takes 2 hits, nearly jerking his arm out of its socket. Gritting his teeth, he roars, "Keep going." Then a horn sounds from the far side of the courtyard, a deep, pounding note. Robb sees movement on the opposite flank of the Red Keep's walls. A mass of men bursts forth, carrying the banner of House Tarly. A huntsman striding on green. They must have encircled the keep from the eastern side, forcing the defenders to split their attention. Tarly's men storm forward, archers peppering the walls. The Lannisters atop the ramparts waver. Divided, they scramble to defend both sides at once, leaving the scorpions momentarily unattended. This is the opening. Robb and his men slam the ram again, a thunderous crunch of wood and iron. Another, and at last the hinges groan. The portcullis shifts upward slightly as the battered mechanism cracks. A handful of northerners wriggle beneath, prying at the chain from inside. A crossbow bolt takes one in the back, but another seizes the broken links. Metal snaps. The gate lurches, then screeches upward. Robb surges in, sword at the ready. The defenders on the other side appear in disarray. Some fling themselves forward with last-ditch fury, while others fall back, seeking a deeper holdfast. Gray wind leaps at a Lannister soldier who tries to bar the way, teeth closing around the man's pauldron. Blood spatters the stones as the direwolf drags him down. Behind Robb, the Greyjohn and Tyrell knights spill into the ward, roaring as they clash with pockets of defenders. The courtyard's interior is awash with violence. Once past the gate, Robb spots a stone stair rising to the battlements. If they take the walls, they can stop the archers from raining death on the rest. "With me," he shouts, charging for the stairs. A knot of Lannister halberdiers tries to block his path. But the Greyjohn smashes into them with reckless force, and Robb darts past, ascending 2 steps at a time. Arrows zip overhead. Dead. One finds a crack in the Greyjohn's armor, a shallow wound in his side, but he bellows in defiance, continuing the fight. Robb and a handful of his best men reach the top, crashing into the rank of archers. Sword meets bow, and the archers fall back in confusion. Another scorpion stands unmanned, its crew dead or fled. Robb kicks aside the body of a Lannister soldier to clear space. The vantage from up here is dizzying. He sees the capital sprawled below, black smoke drifting in columns from various fires, the glint of arms and banners along the city streets. Above the rooftops, the distant green and gold of Tyrell banners converge. He thrusts at an archer who tries to draw a short sword, then steps away as another arrow whistles past. The great Joan's voice booms from below, calling for the rest to press onward. At last the ramparts are subdued, the Lannister archers either dead or scattered. Robb forces a moment to breathe. They have taken the walls of the outer ward. The Red Keep's main doors lie just beyond a broad courtyard. There, a gatehouse leads into Maegor's holdfast. He hears horns from the eastern side again. Tarly's men are breaching another section, or so it seems. Shouts ring from behind the fortress walls. The defenders are trapped between two or more attacking hosts. Yet the keep itself is formidable, and Robb knows well that cornered lions are the most dangerous. Joffrey's personal guard, the King's Guard, might rally to make a final stand. He gestures for his banner men to gather. Catelyn stands at the foot of the stairs, scanning the yard with anxious eyes. He descends quickly to her, checking that she is unhurt. Soot smudges her cheeks, and her expression is grim. "Have you seen any sign of the royal family?" she asks, voice taut with worry for Sansa and Arya. "Not yet," he says, shaking his head. "They must be holed up in Maegor's holdfast. We'll have to break through yet another gate." Her eyes flick to the bodies strewn across the courtyard. "This can still go so badly," she whispers. "If they choose to kill hostages." Robb sets his jaw. "We must move quickly." Soldiers under the banners of Tyrell, Tarly, and Stark converge in the outer ward, forcing the last pockets of red cloaks to surrender or die. Cries echo from the keep. Lannister arms wave from high windows. Some might be preparing to drop stones or oil. Robb signals the archers to keep watch. Then, with the Great John and a large, bristling group of Northerners, he strides toward the keep's main doors, a set of stout oak, reinforced with iron, overshadowed by murder holes in the ceiling of the stone passage leading inside. This will be a harsh fight, but it must be done. Robb looks around for the ram, but it's pinned near the gatehouse. A group of Tyrell soldiers hastens to bring it forward. Meanwhile, Tarly himself appears through a secondary entrance to the courtyard, his helm's visor lifted. His square, stern face is slick with sweat and grime. He nods curtly to Robb. "Your Grace, we've pinned the last of the defenders in the main keep. They refuse to yield. If we try to storm that passage, we'll lose many to arrow slits and boiling oil." "We cannot linger," Robb says, voice tight. "Joffrey and Cersei are likely inside. My sisters too. There's no telling what they might do out of desperation." The Tyrell lord's lips thin. "We could attempt to starve them out, but who knows what sabotage they could manage in the meantime. They might have stores enough for a short siege. If you truly want to press inside now, we can do it. It'll be costly." "Nam Noir." Robb closes his eyes briefly, recalling the vow he made to free his sisters, to have justice for his father's death. "Bring forth the ram," he decides at last, though his heart weighs heavy. "We'll give them one chance to surrender, one chance. If they refuse, we break through." Tarly inclines his head, stepping aside to issue orders. The battered, soot-blackened ram is dragged into place by a joint crew of Northerners and Tyrells. The men gather behind mantlets to protect themselves from arrows shot through murder holes. Robb stands at the threshold, sword in hand, shoulders tense. He calls out, voice booming in the courtyard. "I am Robb Stark, King in the North. Joffrey Baratheon, hear me, your city has fallen. Surrender now and you will receive the mercy of the North. Do not force more bloodshed." His words echo against the red stone walls, carrying into the gloom of the keep's entrance. Silence stretches. Then a voice calls back, harsh and tinged with panic. "Begone, wolf! The boy king does not command me, but I speak for Queen Regent Cersei. You will not take her, nor the king alive. Turn back or burn. Do you mind?" Robb's heart sinks, though he is unsurprised. He steels himself. I will give you this one chance. Surrender now, release any hostages, and lay down your arms." Silence again. A faint movement flickers in the murder hole overhead. The Great John hurries to usher men behind shields, expecting a deluge of oil or pitch. But nothing comes. The defenders are likely preparing for the ram's assault. Robb sets his jaw. So be it. Men to the ram. They form ranks. A handful of northern soldiers grip the handles, braced beneath the mantlets. The outer doors must be splintered before they can even reach the next barrier, Maker's holdfast, which might have a drawbridge or portcullis of its own. Joffrey and Cersei hide behind layers of defense, each one more treacherous than the last. But Robb cannot falter now. He raises his sword, then brings it down in a swift chop through the air. Drive it home. The ram slams against the doors with a jarring crash, the timbers vibrating. The men fall back, then surge forward again. Crash. A volley of arrows whistles down from narrow slits, but the mantlets deflect most. A single scream tells of one who wasn't as lucky. Crash. The oak cracks but holds. Smoke from the city seeps into the courtyard, coiling around the battered combatants. Up on the parapets, archers from the north and from Highgarden keep watch, ready to shoot any Lannister who shows himself. Tarly paces behind the men at the ram, barking commands to keep in time. The Great John stands near Robb, hammer in hand, the wound in his side ignored for now. Catelyn waits with a cluster of soldiers off to one side, eyes locked on the keep. The strain etched on her face is unmistakable. Crash. The doors creak inward, splinters showing. Someone inside shouts, "Hold," in desperation. Another wave of arrows clatters across the mantlets. A Tyrell soldier falls, clutching a shaft in his throat, blood spurting between his fingers. His comrade drags him aside, grim-faced, and another quickly takes his place on the ram's handle. Crash. With a deafening groan, the door starts to give way, a black gap forming where the boards split. "We're nearly through," a northern voice cries. They brace the ram for another swing, hearts pounding. Crash. The wood caves in, and a rush of smoky air pours out from inside. Breach. The cry rings out among the attackers. Robb lifts his sword, and together they surge through the ragged opening. The corridor beyond is choked with the stench of old torches and unwashed bodies. Hasty barricades of furniture and overturned tables line the hallway. Red cloaks and gold cloaks wait with weapons drawn, faces set in terrified resolve. The moment the attackers pour in, chaos erupts anew. Steel meets steel in the cramped hallway. Gray wind darts into the fray, snapping at ankles, forcing defenders to stumble. Robb parries a spear, slams the pommel of his sword into a gold cloak's helm, then slashes across a second man's thigh. Shrieks echo off the stone. Behind him, Tyrell knights thrust lances over the makeshift barricade, while northern axemen hack at the supports. Slowly, inexorably, they push deeper. An arrow whips past Robb's ear and ricochets off the wall behind. He sees one of his men from House Mormont collapse, a sword still clutched in his hand. Another wave of defenders storms forward, but their numbers are too few to hold. Tarly's men flank from the side corridor, cutting off any retreat. Amid the melee, Robb glimpses a stout, balding officer raising his hands in surrender. A handful of guards follow suit, dropping weapons. Their eyes are wide, as though they cannot believe the city has truly fallen. Through the crush, Robb presses on, straining to see if there's any sign of the Hound or the Kingsguard. But the hallway is a swirl of battered men in Lannister colors, none in the famed white cloak of the Kingsguard. He ducks under a swinging mace, counters with a slash that opens the attacker's arm to the bone. The man howls. Robb sidesteps a second blow. Suddenly, gray wind snarls, bounding forward to pounce on a figure that leaps from behind a toppled wardrobe. The direwolf tears into him before he can strike. Blood spatters the walls. The defenders' line breaks at last. Some fling down their arms, others dash off deeper into the keep, presumably trying to reach a more defensible chamber. Robb signals to hold position. He stands amid the wreckage, chest heaving, swords clashing still in the background. "We must find Maker's holdfast," he manages between gasps. "The main keep leads there. That's where they'll be." Then, Tarley steps up beside him, face grim and streaked with blood not his own. "We can push through the main hall. That way." He gestures to a wide corridor branching left. Robb spares a glance behind him for Catelyn. She remains at the corridor entrance, shielded by a ring of Karstark men. He can see the relief in her expression that he still stands. Then he leads on, forging through the battered keep. The halls widen and narrow unpredictably. They pass a collapsed chandelier, shattered across the tiles. Torn tapestries, bearing the Lion of Lannister, lie trampled in bloody footprints. The men keep their weapons at the ready, braced for any ambush. They near the main hall that leads to the throne room and the seat of the Targaryen kings. The doors stand partway open, the corridor beyond illuminated by high windows. Robb wonders if Joffrey cowers in that seat, mad with fear, or if Cersei stands by the Iron Throne, ready to pay any price to keep her child on it. That path might lead them to the heart of the red-hued fortress. But Tarley urges him left, toward a narrower passage. Maegor's holdfast is that way, beyond a smaller courtyard. I suspect the Lannisters retreated there. The throne room might be deserted. Robb nods. We have to secure the hostages if they're inside. Move carefully. They step into yet another corridor, this one lined with columns. Light from arrow slits reveals dust swirling in the air, and the hush is eerie. The clash of steel echoes behind them, but here, all is still. Grey Wind's ears prick up, and his lips curl back from his teeth. Robb tenses. Something is off. A flicker of movement at the far end. A tall figure in soot-stained plate armor emerges, a white cloak swirling behind him. His face is half concealed by a dented helm, but there's no mistaking the scar. Sandor Clegane, the Hound. He grips a longsword in gauntleted hands. Behind him stands a cluster of red cloaks, trembling but determined. The Hound's voice rumbles low, as rough as gravel. "You want the boy king? You'll have to go through me." Robb's men stir, uncertain. They know the Hound by reputation. Fearless in battle, unstoppable in his fury, Tarley readies his blade, stance shifting. The Great John hefts his hammer, lips peeling back in a feral grin. Robb lifts a hand to signal caution. "Stand aside, Clegane. Joffrey's reign is done. Spare yourself, and you might live to see another dawn." The Hound snorts, the sound echoing in the corridor. "Spare me your talk of mercy. I serve the king, though the gods know he's hardly worth dying for." A bitter laugh rattles his throat. "But I serve. And if you want him, you'll have to cut me down." Tarley steps forward, but Robb shakes his head, stepping into the fore. He knows the Hound's reputation. A monstrous fighter, near impossible to best in single combat. But he also knows that, in this moment, he cannot stand back and let Tarley risk it all. This is his war. And if the Hound stands between him and saving Sansa, Arya, or dethroning Joffrey, he must face the brute himself. He steels himself, gripping his sword in both hands, the pommel pressed lightly against his gauntlet. Grey Wind snarls, muscles coiling as though to lunge. Robb gestures the direwolf to stay back. A single blow from the Hound's sword could kill even a beast as mighty as Grey Wind. No, this is for Robb. The corridor thickens with tension, the onlookers stepping aside. Sandor Clegane lifts his blade, curling his lip in contempt. "Come on, pup of the North. Let's see if you fight as well as they say." Robb's heart thuds in his chest. He thinks of his father, of all that has brought him here. Then he lunges, sword leading, his breath a tight coil in his lungs. Clegane meets his strike with a powerful parry, steel sparking. Robb shifts his weight, turning the deflected blow into a downward cut. But the Hound sidesteps, swinging for Robb's flank. Robb barely blocks in time, the force reverberating through his arms. For a long moment, the corridor becomes a symphony of clashing steel. Robb moves with the speed of youth, darting in for quick strikes, testing the Hound's defenses. Clegane counters with brute strength, each blow punishing, seeking to drive Robb backward. Dust motes dance in the pale light as onlookers hold their breath. One slip and the fight ends in blood. Robb manages to duck under a savage overhead swing, but the momentum of the hound's blade tears a chunk from the stone column behind him. Shards of rock clatter to the floor. Robb retaliates with a thrust aimed at the hound's midsection. Clegane twists, and the blade scrapes across his breastplate, leaving a deep scratch, but no mortal wound. With a snarl, the hound clubs Robb's shoulder, sending him staggering sideways. Pain jolts through Robb's arm. He recovers, refusing to surrender ground. Gray Wind growls, pacing. For a heartbeat, Robb and the hound circle, each breathing heavily. Beneath the helm, Sandor's eyes flick toward Gray Wind, then back to Robb. He mutters a curse under his breath, then rushes forward with a flurry of strikes. Robb blocks twice, parries a third. The fourth slams into his side, rattling him. His mail holds, but the impact sends him stumbling into a column. Clegane closes in, raising his sword to finish it. Robb fights through the haze of pain, slashing at the hound's exposed leg. The blade cuts a shallow gash through the armor near the knee. Sandor howls in rage, his stance faltering. Robb pushes away from the column, gripping his sword with white-knuckled determination, seizing the moment to strike again. Their blades meet with a jarring crash. The hound roars, face twisted behind his helm. Robb aims for an opening near the armpit. The hound senses it, twisting aside, but not enough. Steel pierces the chain links at the joint of his armor. He jerks away with a snarl. In that instant, Gray Wind leaps, ignoring Robb's earlier command. The direwolf lunges at the hound's sword arm, jaws locking onto metal. Clegane cries out, punching at the wolf's head with his free hand, but Gray Wind's grip is iron. Robb seizes the advantage, stepping in and pressing his sword to the hound's unprotected throat just beneath the helm. Sandor goes rigid, breath ragged, pinned between man and beast. Blood seeps from his wounded armpit, and Gray Wind's teeth worry his other arm. But the hound's eyes flicker with savage defiance. Robb's own breath comes fast. His arm trembles with strain and pain. "Yield or die," he says, voice hoarse. He can feel the eyes of all around them. Even Caitlin stands transfixed. Sandor breathes heavily, face twisted. At last he growls, "The boy is a monster. Let him burn in his own filth. Do what you must." He slumps, dropping his blade. "I'm finished." Robb hesitates. The hound's reputation is fearsome, but in this moment he offers surrender. Gray Wind keeps a hold, growling deep. Slowly, Robb lowers his sword. "Then you live," he says, voice laced with quiet finality. "But you stand aside." Sandor closes his eyes, nodding once in bitter resignation. Robb motions for men to bind him, though carefully. The hound offers no further resistance, wincing as the gash under his arm seeps fresh blood. At the rear of the corridor, the red cloaks who had accompanied the hound cast down their arms, seeing their champion undone. Their last line of defense is broken. Tarley's men rush forward to secure them, while Robb stands, chest still heaving, looking deeper into the keep. He knows Joffrey is near, caged in the fortress's final heart. He feels a hand on his uninjured shoulder. Turning, he sees Caitlyn's eyes brimming with both relief and dread. She squeezes gently. "We must press on," she says softly. Arya. Sansa. They could be beyond these halls. Master roar. Robb nods, summoning the last reserves of strength. "Aye, we will find them and end this." With the corridor secured, he and his men, exhausted, bloodied, but unbroken, push deeper into Maegor's holdfast, stepping into the gloom where the final throes of the Lannister regime await. Smoke from the city seeps in through shattered windows, carrying the echo of horns and war cries. The Iron Throne is near, and with it, the last barrier between the king in the north and the justice he has fought so hard to claim. Ksh. Ayn. Robb leads his men forward through the corridor, every sense taut as a drawn bowstring. The atmosphere inside Maegor's holdfast is thick with dust and dread, as though the walls themselves know the tide has turned. One false step could trigger a desperate ambush. A hidden archer behind a pillar, a pot of scorching pitch dumped from above. He gestures for Tarley's knights and the northern spearmen to fan out, searching each alcove. The Great John, still clutching his hammer despite the wet stain of blood seeping through his side, nods at Robb to show he remains ready. Gray wind pads beside them, muzzle still slick, ears pricked for the faintest sound of danger. Somewhere behind, Caitlin stays among Karstark guards, her features stern. She has insisted on coming, though the deeper they venture, the greater the risk. Robb knows every moment might be a matter of life or death for Sansa, or for any hostages the Lannisters still hold. He tries to hold on to the flicker of hope that his sisters are still alive. At times, a part of him wants to rush headlong through these halls, bellowing his sisters' names, but he forces discipline upon himself. To lose caution now might cost him everything he has worked for: justice, vengeance, and the safety of those he loves. They make slow progress, pressing through the first sets of ornate doors that lead off to side chambers. Robb glimpses rooms draped in red and gold banners, obviously the Lannister mark supplanting Targaryen or Baratheon heraldry. Some doors hang ajar, revealing opulent salons or parlors in disarray. Footsteps echo on polished marble floors, interwoven with the hush of men who know they are near their ultimate foe. Each time a shadow moves across a corridor, bows are drawn. Each time a tapestry sways in an unseen draft, swords tense. A young Tyrell knight, hardly more than a squire in truth, calls out softly from a branching hallway. "There are locked doors here, your grace." His face is smeared with soot and fear, but his posture is resolute. Robb moves over to see two tall, iron-bound doors, evidently reinforced with fresh boards hammered across them. No voices come from inside, though it could hide any manner of Lannister trap. Tarley's men step up with axes to hack through. Robb's instincts warn him to keep watch, in case the defenders inside choose that moment to strike. Chips of wood and splinters fly as the axes bite into the crossbeams. A faint scraping sounds from the far side, as if someone is pushing furniture against the door. Robb motions for the axemen to stand aside. "Open up. In the name of the king in the north," he calls, voice echoing. Silence answers him. He gives a nod, and the men resume chopping. After several hard swings, the boards yield. Then they drive a heavy boot to the doors, and it bursts in. A swirl of stale air drifts out, tinted with candle smoke. Inside is a large sitting room, now in disarray. Velvet drapes torn, high-backed chairs overturned. 3 or 4 women cluster at the far end, servants by their attire, clinging to one another. No sign of red cloaks or gold cloaks. The servants' eyes go wide when they see armed soldiers spill in. "We mean you no harm," Robb says quickly, holding up a hand. One woman bursts into tears, the others cower. "Where are the Lannisters? Is anyone else with you?" He keeps his sword lowered, hoping to calm them. The sobbing woman just shakes her head, unable to speak. Another tries, voice quivering. "We were told to stay here, my lord. They locked us in. We heard fighting and feared for our lives." She eyes Grey Wind with open terror, pressing her back against the wall. Tarley issues orders for a knight to escort these women toward the safer corridors. They will be kept under guard for their own protection. Robb, satisfied the chamber poses no threat, moves on with the Greyjohn and the others. Each new hallway yields an emptiness that sets his nerves on edge. Where are the bulk of the Red Cloaks? Where is Joffrey, or Cersei, or the Kingsguard he has heard so much about? Sandor Clegane might have been formidable, but the Hound was only one member of the Royal Protectors. Meryn Trant, Boros Blount, names Robb has heard used in the same breath as cruelty. They might lurk in some barricaded corner, swords drawn, ready to butcher hostages if pressed. He can't allow that. They climb a curving staircase, footsteps clanking on stone. The hush of the keep thickens. At the top, they find a landing leading onto a long gallery, the walls lined with ornate windows looking out over the courtyard they fought so hard to breach. Sunlight streams in through dust mote. It's almost surreal, the hush after so much bloodshed. Robb notices 2 dead men near the railing, wearing the sigil of House Tarley. They must have ventured up here alone and been met with lethal skill. The Great John kneels to examine them, scowling. "Taken in the back," he says, pointing to the wounds. "Whoever did this was quick and precise." Robb swallows. Then we watch our backs. Swords up, stay together. They move on, scanning the corners. Ahead, a set of double doors with gold filigree stands slightly ajar, as if left in haste. A tapestry partially ripped from the wall flutters, showing a lion devouring a stag. Robb steps forward, pushing the door open with the tip of his blade. The chamber beyond takes his breath away. It's the Royal Solar, a grand space with tall windows that cast bright rectangles of light on a mosaic floor. Rich carpets have been tossed aside, revealing hidden compartments in the floor. A table near the center is covered with half-eaten plates of fruit, goblets of wine, and scattered parchments. The smell is oddly sweet, overlaying the metallic tang of fear that lingers in the air. No defenders wait in this room, yet he senses it was occupied only moments before. A single door stands at the far side, leading deeper in. Grey Wind's ears perk. The direwolf pads across the mosaic floor, nostrils flaring. Robb hears hushed voices, or maybe just the echo of footsteps, beyond the second door. He gestures to Tyrell, who nods and carefully moves around the table, with two of his knights, swords drawn. Robb readies himself for a surge of violence the moment they breach that portal. Yet every second they delay might mean the difference between life or death for Sansa. He steels himself and eases closer, heart thudding. The Great John stands at his shoulder, hammer in a white-knuckle grip. They push open the door. A short corridor beckons, a single wall sconce flickering. It leads to a flight of narrow steps, evidently heading downward. Robb hears a muffled shout, then the clang of a gate. He exchanges a glance with the Great John. Are the Lannisters fleeing into the dungeons? Or is this some hidden passage? They descend carefully, boots echoing on the stone. The sconce's light fails to penetrate far, so Tyrell tears it from the wall to carry it, illuminating the gloom. The steps curl around, leading them to a small landing with an iron gate that stands partly open. Something in the air feels damper here, an undercurrent of stale water and old stone. Robb steps through first, raising his sword. The corridor beyond is cramped, the ceiling low. He sees tracks of fresh footprints in the dust. Someone came this way moments ago. Pressing on, they find a locked door on the left, presumably a storeroom. Then a right turn leads them to a threshold that opens into a wide, vault-like space with columns spaced in intervals. The flicker of Tyrell's torchlight reveals casks, barrels, and racks for storing produce. A hidden pantry, or perhaps a secret approach to the dungeons. Robb can't be sure. But what he can see is a figure darting between the columns. A flash of gold armor glinting in the dim light. Several silhouettes move behind him. A voice echoes off the walls, high and trembling. "Kill them. I am your king. Kill them." The words twist with petulant fury. Robb's pulse spikes. Joffrey dot. He recognizes that shrill tone from the day his father was executed, from the stories Sansa told in letters before they all went astray. The boy king is so near, the object of all Robb's hatred. Without thinking, he charges forward with his men, ignoring the Great John's roar to stay together. He must end this. The columns flash by in a murky blur. Grey Wind surges ahead, snarling. Then crossbow bolts whistle from behind stacked crates, forcing Robb to duck. One bolt glances off his left pauldron, leaving a jarring ache. Another lodges in a barrel, quivering. A knot of gold-cloaked men leaps out, swords gleaming. They meet the northern soldiers in a tight melee. The shadows of the columns and barrels make it a chaotic, cramped fight, with Tyrell's torch swirling, the flames dancing across the stone. The Great John lays about him with savage abandon, hammer crushing one guard's skull. Another soldier tries to run him through with a spear, but a Karstark retainer intercepts, slashing the spear wielder's throat. Robb parries blow after blow, seeking an opening. He spots a flash of cloth at the far side of the storeroom, purple and gold, the colors of House Baratheon, or Lannister truly. It must be Joffrey scuttling away, flanked by two guards. "Stop him!" Robb yells, voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. But three more gold cloaks move to block him, weapons raised. Robb ducks a wild swing, drives his sword into one man's belly, hearing a choked gasp. He tears the blade free, just in time to sidestep another blow. Tyrell thrusts his torch at a second guard's face, scorching hair and forcing him to stumble back. Then a Tyrell knight stabs from behind, finishing him. Finally, Robb manages to break clear of the melee. He sees Joffrey at a distant archway leading deeper into what looks like an old wine cellar or sublevel. The boy king's face is pale, his lips pulled back in a snarl. Next to him stands Sir Meryn Trant in white armor, sword in hand, along with a second Kingsguard that might be Boros Blount or another of that wretched band. They half-drag, half-push someone with them. A flash of auburn hair in the torchlight jolts Robb's heart. Sansa die. She's sobbing, arms bound, a bruise on her cheek, dress torn. The Kingsguard hold her like a human shield. Robb's rage surges. "Let her go," he bellows, voice cracking across the storeroom. He pushes forward, but arrows from the side force him to duck behind a crate. Joffrey's voice cuts through the gloom, hysterical. "Back, traitor! You come near and I'll cut off her head." Sir Meryn's blade hovers near Sansa's throat. Indeed. She's shuddering, tears streaking her dirty face. Robb's breath seizes in raw fear. He glances around for a path to flank them. Tyrell snarls to a pair of archers, "Can you take them from the side?" But the angles are poor, the columns thick. Any arrow might strike Sansa if the Kingsguard shift. A standoff. Robb curses, sweat beading on his brow. He can't risk a frontal charge or Sansa's life ends. The Grey John, panting, lifts his hammer. "What do we do, Your Grace?" Before Robb can answer, Joffrey's shrill voice leaps out. "Put down your swords. Put them down or I'll have her throat slit here and now." Sansa's whimper echoes. Robb's mind races. He can't let Joffrey slip away with his sister, but neither can he gamble Sansa's life. He glances at Tyrell, who clenches his jaw in silent frustration. The Greatjon scowls, trembling with suppressed fury. One misstep, and Sansa bleeds out on these cold stones. Desperate, Robb tries words first. "Joffrey, release her and surrender. Your men are beaten. The city has fallen. If you yield now, I give you my word of mercy." Each syllable tastes bitter, but he'd promise anything to save Sansa taught. "Let her go." Joffrey's laugh is like broken glass. "Mercy? From a dog of the north? My mother warned me about your false promises. I am your rightful king. You'll bend the knee, or watch the girl die." He jerks Sansa's bound arms and she stumbles. Sir Meryn keeps the sword tip pressed to her neck. Robb sees a thin line of blood where the blade bites her skin. His rage pulses so hot he can hardly see straight, but he forces it down. If he rushes, Sansa dies. He tries to keep his voice steady, though it trembles. She is innocent. This is not her war. Sir Meryn's sneer is visible behind the tilt of his helm. The girl is traitor's blood. Another Kingsguard stands at Joffrey's side, likewise brandishing steel. That one is broader, though his face is half hidden by visor. Each has a handful of gold cloaks with crossbows, reloading in the gloom. Any attempt to rush them results in a volley of bolts. They've cornered themselves, but cornered with a hostage. Robb signals for his men to lower weapons, ignoring Tarly's protest. Slowly, grudgingly, the Northerners and Tyrell knights ease swords down. Robb steps into the open, arms half raised. "We're disarmed, you see." He sets his sword on the floor with a clang, though he keeps his shield braced at his side, hoping the motion seems non-threatening. "Let her go, Joffrey." The boy king's lips curl back. By the flicker of torches, his face looks feverish, smeared with soot. A crust of dried blood stains his golden tunic. He clutches the pommel of a dagger at his belt, as though it could shield him from the entire world. "You think I'm a fool? You'll kill me the moment I free her." He glances around wildly, searching for an escape route. In the gloom behind him, a short corridor leads presumably to more storage or a dead end. If Joffrey truly means to run, there's nowhere to go but deeper underground. Sansa tries to speak, her voice a ragged plea. "Robb, please." She barely manages the words before Sir Meryn jerks her arms again to silence her. Robb feels each pained syllable like a knife in his ribs. He tries to think of a strategy, some way to distract them. Gray Wind stands at the edge of the circle, hackles raised, muzzle parted in a silent snarl. If the direwolf attacks, Sansa might be caught in the chaos. One of the gold cloaks shifts, re-aiming the crossbow. Robb does his best to keep his breathing even. "We can talk. I'll permit you and your mother safe passage." "Lies." Joffrey screeches. "I've seen what you did to my men. I know you want me dead, as you wanted my father dead. You murdered him with your trickery." Robb's anger flares. "You dare speak of murder? My father was beheaded by your command." At once, he regrets letting his fury slip. Sansa stiffens, tears pouring down her cheeks. He cannot lose control. A voice rings through the gloom from behind them. "Robb? I'm here." It's a girl's shout. "Arya?" For a heartbeat, he can't believe his ears. He turns to see, at the far edge of the storeroom, a figure being ushered in by a group of northern soldiers. She's small, dressed in ragged clothes, hair cropped short. Could it truly be Arya? She tries to lunge forward, eyes wild. But a soldier holds her back, calling, "We found her locked up near the kitchens, Your Grace. She said she's your sister." The man's voice trembles with amazement. Robb's heart leaps, but he can't form words. He sees Arya's storm-gray eyes staring at Sansa in terror and relief. Joffrey jerks around, momentarily distracted by the commotion. Samarin glances over as well, loosening his hold on Sansa. That fraction of a second is enough. Gray Wind springs from the side, going for the gold cloak who stands nearest. The crossbow goes off, the bolt burying itself in a barrel. In the same instant, Robb snatches up his shield and rushes forward. Ser Meryn tries to pull Sansa tighter, but her sudden movement disrupts his grip. She twists, letting out a pained gasp as the blade nicks her shoulder. The Great John lunges from another angle, hammer raised. The corridor explodes into frenzied motion. Joffrey shrieks, scrabbling to draw his dagger. One of his crossbowmen fires hastily, the bolt cracking against Robb's shield. Robb slams into the man, toppling him. Ser Meryn whirls, struggling to keep Sansa under the sword. But Tarly charges from behind a column, slashing at the Kingsguard's arm. The blade clangs on white plate. Ser Meryn staggers, shifting his stance. Sansa staggers, tears streaming. Robb sees an opening and seizes her around the waist, pulling her free as best he can. She cries out in pain, but she's out of the direct line of the blade. Ser Meryn tries to slash at Robb, but Tarly's second strike hits home, the sword biting into the Kingsguard's shoulder joint. Ser Meryn curses, bringing up his own blade in defense. The second Kingsguard, the broader one, hurls himself forward with a roar, blocking the Great John's hammer swing. Steel rattles, and the two men lock in savage combat. Joffrey stumbles back, nearly losing his footing. One of his men tries to shield him, but Gray Wind knocks the guard off balance, snapping at his face. The guard screams. Another crossbow bolt zips by, lodging in the wooden crate behind. The entire space is chaos, men grappling among crates, the torchlight swirling wildly, Sansa sobbing into Robb's arms, Arya shouting from across the chamber. Robb helps Sansa to the floor, behind a half-fallen barrel. "Stay down," he orders, voice ragged. A glance at her reveals a thin slash across her neck, blood seeping from the shallow wound. Horror squeezes his chest, but he sees she is conscious. He shoves a fold of his cloak to press against the cut, praying it's not deep enough to kill. Then he turns, sword in hand, and spots Joffrey. The Boy King stands in the open, eyes darting like a cornered rat. He brandishes his dagger, chest heaving. The gold cloaks are nearly all engaged or dead, leaving Joffrey alone except for the two white-armored Kingsguard, who can barely hold off Tarly and the Great John. Now is Robb's chance. He strides toward Joffrey, sidestepping a corpse. Joffrey shrinks back, raising the dagger. "Stay away." The words break in a ragged squeak. Robb lifts his shield, edging closer. "It's over," he growls, voice thick with everything he has lost. His father, friends, the illusions of safety. Yield. Joffrey's eyes flick to Sansa, to the swirl of violence, and back to Robb. He lifts the dagger as if to slash out. The boy is trembling from head to toe. Robb can almost taste the fear rolling off him. He thinks of Ned Stark, forced to his knees on Joffrey's orders. The memory scalds him, but he steels himself. This is no time for blind rage. The realm must see justice done. A savage crash echoes behind them as the Great John's hammer slams the second Kingsguard into a barrel. White plate cracks under the force. Tarly's sword scythes across Ser Meryn's side, drawing a wail. Robb never takes his eyes from Joffrey. Slowly, he lifts the tip of his sword until it's pointed at the king's throat. "Throw it down," he says, "or die like the coward you are." Breathing fast, Joffrey looks around, realizing no help is coming. His mother isn't here. The Hound has been defeated. The gold cloaks are outmatched. With a whimper, he lowers the dagger, letting it slip from his fingers to clatter on the stone floor. His knees give out, sending him collapsing in a pathetic heap. Robb stands over him, sword still leveled. Across the storeroom, the last gold cloak falls, his crossbow sliding from limp hands. The Great John delivers a final hammer blow to the second Kingsguard's helm, crumpling it. Ser Meryn collapses under Tarly's boot, severely wounded, sword clattering away. Joffrey begins to sob, trying to scramble backward on his hands. "Don't kill me. Don't. I'm the king. I'll give you anything." Spittle flecks his lips. Robb's knuckles tighten on his sword hilt. He wants to run this wretch through, to avenge Ned Stark in a single stroke. Perhaps that would be the merciful thing. Yet he feels his father's presence in the back of his mind. Would Ned Stark have executed a child cowering in fear? Joffrey is vile, but it is still a child's face twisted in terror. Robb draws a shuddering breath. The Great John steps up. Hammer dripping blood, eyes lit with the desire for vengeance. "Your Grace, let me finish this." Robb shakes his head, though part of him wants to agree. He surrenders. "We are not butchers." He glances at Tarly, who stands over Ser Meryn's groaning form. The Tyrell Lord meets Robb's gaze and nods in understanding, stepping aside. Robb lowers his sword to Joffrey's chest, pressing the point just enough to prick the boy's silk tunic. "Your reign is done. You will answer for your crimes," he says, voice cold. Joffrey weeps, trembling. The Great John spits on the floor. "Little worm. We should have your head for what you did to Lord Stark." Minister Poe. Robb almost agrees, but instead he orders, "Bind him. Gag him if you must. We'll take him to the throne room for judgment." He's not sure how this new kingship will handle justice, but he knows one thing. The realm must see that a fair trial is possible, or at least the semblance of it. Besides, Sansa is injured, and that matters more to him than any immediate vengeance. Grey Wind stands guard, teeth bared at the whimpering boy. Tarly, breathing heavily, nods. "As you say, Your Grace." He gestures for 2 knights to seize Joffrey. The boy king struggles feebly, screaming curses that devolve into panicked sobs. They tie his hands behind his back and yank him upright. Ser Meryn, likewise, is dragged and bound, though he's half-conscious from pain. The other Kingsguard is dead, battered by the Great John's relentless assault. Robb sheathes his sword and rushes back to Sansa. She's pale, shaking badly, eyes unfocused. He sinks to his knees, gently lifting the makeshift bandage from her neck. A shallow cut bleeds sluggishly, but it hasn't sliced a major vessel. Relief floods through him. He cradles her face, brushing tears away with his thumb. "Sansa, it's me. You're safe now." She blinks, her eyes slowly recognizing him. At once, she starts to sob in earnest, pressing her face to his shoulder. Trembling so hard he fears she'll faint. He holds her, the rage and tension in him turning to raw protectiveness. "I've got you," he murmurs. "I swear it." His own tears threaten, but he keeps them at bay. Arya appears then, ducking through the chaos of the storeroom, pushing past soldiers. Robb sees she's grown since he last laid eyes on her. Her face narrower, haunted. Yet she leaps into him with the same fierce energy of a child, arms flung around his neck. "Robb," she whispers into his tunic. voice cracking. I was locked away. I tried to get out, but Sansa." She sees her sister, tears glistening. They wrap each other in a desperate hug that nearly crushes Robb's heart. He looks over their heads at his mother, who stands near the column, speechless. Her eyes shine with tears of relief, of heartbreak. So many nights they'd feared Arya dead, lost somewhere in this monstrous city. But the gods have granted a reprieve. She moves forward and envelops both daughters, holding them with a trembling sigh. In that moment, the conflict around them recedes to an echo. Northern and Tyrell men stand watch, tending to the wounded, restraining the captives. Joffrey's sobs fill the background like a twisted dirge for all the realm's pain. Robb closes his eyes, letting the weight of his sisters in his arms tell him that, for this heartbeat, they are truly reunited. Ned Stark's daughters live. He senses a pang, wishing their father could witness this. The joy is stained by the memory of a head on a spike, the cruelty that set all these gears in motion. A Tyrell knight approaches, clearing his throat. "Your Grace, the keep is ours. We found no sign of Queen Cersei yet. She may have fled, or she may be hiding deeper inside. The men are combing the halls above." He glances at the trembling boy king in his men's custody. "What would you have us do with him?" Robb's arms tighten around Sansa one more time. Then he carefully eases her to a pair of waiting soldiers who help her stand. Arya refuses to leave his side, so he keeps an arm around her shoulders. Rising, he addresses the knight. "We bring him into the daylight. We'll hold him in the throne room, post guards. If there's a dungeon cell that's more secure, we can arrange that later. For now, I'd have the realm see that the boy king is well and truly deposed." The knight bows, glancing warily at Joffrey, who thrashes uselessly in the grip of the men binding him. "As you say, Your Grace." Robb steels himself, turning to Tarly. "Send out orders. Our men are to keep discipline. No looting. We want to restore some semblance of peace, not become beasts in a sacked city." Tarly nods, relief and respect etched on his rugged features. Though they're caked in blood and grime, the men in the corridor share the sense that victory is near, if they can keep order. The Great John, battered but grinning through blood-stained teeth, claps Robb's shoulder. "We've done it, lad. The Lannisters are scattered or dead. The false king is ours." He glances at Joffrey with a look of dark satisfaction. "Justice at last." Robb can only nod. He guides his mother and sisters behind the protective circle of soldiers, carefully navigating the labyrinth of storerooms back to the corridor. As they emerge into the upper halls, more Northern and Tyrell troops converge, their armor scuffed, some limping, others supporting the wounded. The hush is broken by low murmurs of relief. King's Landing is taken. Maegor's holdfast is secured. Pockets of resistance remain, perhaps, but the head is cut from the serpent. Sansa clings to Robb's arm, exhausted. Her eyes dart anxiously, expecting more violence at every turn. Arya's hand clasps Robb's cloak, knuckles white. Their mother, tears shining, manages to walk in measured steps, regal as she can be under the circumstances. Yet the weight of sorrow lines her face. What they have won has cost so much. In the main hallway leading to the throne room, torches flare in wall sconces. The grand doors ahead stand open, revealing the massive chamber beyond, empty save for scattered guards that now bear the direwolf or the golden rose on their surcoats. The Iron Throne rises at the far end, a brutal silhouette of melted swords. The dais is lit by high windows. Once, Joffrey perched there in petty tyranny. Now he shuffles in chains, forced along by guards. A hush falls when Robb and his group enter. Many eyes flick to the battered boy king. A rustle of incredulous whispers moves through the gathered men-at-arms. Some spit at Joffrey's feet. Some shake their heads in disbelief. Tarly steps forward and addresses the room. "Behold, Joffrey Baratheon, the pretender who had no rightful claim, responsible for the murder of Lord Eddard Stark and countless others. He is taken." Robb's heart bangs against his ribs. He did not expect to stand in the throne room quite like this. The memories of his father's final moments swirl. Ned Stark, kneeling before a jeering crowd, Sansa forced to watch Joffrey's smug face as he gave the order. Robb's jaw tightens. The Great John stands at his side, quiet for once, letting Robb speak. Robb steps forward. Lord Tarly speaks truly. Joffrey Baratheon is a usurper of the Iron Throne, a direct hand in my father's death, a threat to the realm. His voice resonates across the high ceilings. Joffrey hangs his head, tears streaking pale cheeks, but he tries to speak. A guard cuffs him, silencing him. Men and women watch from the periphery. Some are lords who hurried forward from the battle once the keep was taken. Others are knights or high-ranking officers. The Tyrell standard stands prominent among them. Margaery Tyrell stands near the front, face calm but watchful, her dark eyes flicking between Robb and Joffrey. She is disheveled from the fighting, though clearly she kept to safer paths. She inclines her head in respect to Robb. Robb looks upon Joffrey's trembling figure. The old Robb, the boy who left Winterfell, might have wavered in the face of it. But the king in the north stands here now, steeled by the horrors and heartbreak of war. We will show the realm that the north deals justly, he says. He shall be held accountable. Then, a flicker of doubt. The families in the south might prefer that Joffrey vanish quietly, or that he be paraded about as a prisoner. Yet Robb can't imagine letting him walk free. He glances at Tarly, who gives a grave nod. Robb steels himself, turning to Sansa, who stands near, unsteady but conscious. She meets his gaze with pained eyes, a silent question. She knows what Joffrey deserves. She's lived under his cruelty. But does she want to see him slain in front of her? Robb cannot tell. Gently, he motions for one of the guards to escort her aside, so she won't have to stand directly before Joffrey. The hush feels immense. Then Joffrey tries to speak again, defiance flaring in his eyes. "You are the traitors," he hisses. "I was crowned by the great Septi. You have no authority." Another blow from the guard. This time Robb lifts a hand, staying them. Let him speak if he wishes. But it won't change his fate. Now, Joffrey's lip curls, bright red from the strike. "Cersei will kill you all. She'll burn this city if she must. You can't." He's trembling too violently to finish. Margaery steps forward, addressing Robb in a voice pitched to carry. "Your Grace, the city belongs to you now. The people outside these walls are frightened, hungry. We have a chance to prove we are not the monsters their former king painted us to be." She casts a glance at Joffrey, a faint hint of contempt in her otherwise composed features. "We should feed them, restore order, show them that a new reign offers hope, not more terror." Robb nods, hearing the sense in her words. This is the victory, yes, but the real test begins now. To rule without cruelty, to keep the city from turning into anarchy. A wave of exhaustion sweeps him, bone deep. "Yes," he says, letting the single word echo. "Send out orders. The Tyrell forces will coordinate with ours to distribute bread if possible, to quell any riots. Let none continue the cycle of violence. The Lannisters are done. We will not become them." "Ill," murmured agreement ripples through the crowd. Lords bow or salute. Some exchange glances, uncertain how long this uneasy alliance will last. But for now, the momentum is with Robb. Tarly calls out for men to gather in squads and begins city patrols, chasing down any last pockets of resistance. Margaery quietly dispatches her own to see about the storehouses. Catelyn finally steps forward, glancing at Joffrey with revulsion. Her voice is carefully modulated. "What of him? Will you hold a formal trial?" She seems to be measuring Robb's reaction, fully aware that many Northmen would prefer to bury their swords in Joffrey's heart. Robb exhales. He will be taken to a secure tower under guard. We will see if Cersei emerges. If she does, she too shall face justice. We cannot allow more bloodshed in these halls. Joffrey Baratheon's crimes are well known. But I will not be called a butcher king. Let the realm witness that we gave him a chance to account for his sins. Joffrey moans, spitting at Robb's feet. "You can't do this. I'm the king." His voice cracks into a wail. The Greatjon snorts in disgust. Two guards march him from the throne room, ignoring his flailing protests. Sir Meryn, half conscious, is dragged along as well. leaving a smear of blood in his wake. Marguerite's face remains smooth, but something cold flickers in her gaze as she watches the boy king taken away. Now only the swirl of lesser lords, knights, and battered soldiers remain. Some cast uneasy stares at the Iron Throne. This monstrous seat has cost countless lives. Robb looks at it, recalling how his father once told him of the swords hammered into its shape. How each was surrendered by a foe conquered by Aegon the dragon. It is not a seat of comfort, Ned had said, but one meant to remind the ruler that no power comes without cost. The Great John clears his throat. Your Grace, the city is yours. Will you sit? He gestures to the throne, though there's a wary note in his voice. Northmen do not love the Iron Throne. It represents the southern realm they once fought to be free of. Robb hesitates. He's always declared himself king in the north, an independence from the Iron Throne. But war changes circumstances. The Tyrell alliance hinged on a broader vision, that maybe the north could claim more than just one realm if the Lannisters were toppled. Before he can decide, he meets his mother's gaze. Catelyn's eyes brim with compassion, as if she knows the turmoil within him. She softly says, "You have done what you came to do. Sought justice for your father, for our family. Whether you claim that seat or not, you have won." He stands a moment in silence, feeling the stares of every man and woman around him. Then he steps forward, climbs the steps to the dais. The throne looms, the edges of the swords glinting like fangs. He does not sit. Instead, he places a hand lightly on the arm of the throne, feeling the cold metal. "My father served a king he believed in," Robb says, voice echoing in the hushed chamber. "The realm deserves a ruler who cares for its people, not a tyranny that feasts on their suffering." A few in the hall stir, glancing at one another. Robb sees Marguerite standing near, her expression almost unreadable. He wonders what her ambitions might be if he does not take the throne. She spoke once of forging a better future. Perhaps she sees herself as queen. Perhaps the Tyrells want to place Robb here, to hold him in their debt. But for now, that is a matter for the morrow. The city bleeds, refugees fill the streets. The war is not over until peace is secured. Tywin Lannister may yet regroup in the west, though the lion's pride has been wounded this day. Robb draws a breath and turns to face those assembled. "People of King's Landing," he declares, "the tyranny of Joffrey Baratheon ends now. House Stark and House Tyrell have taken this city. Henceforth, any who lay down arms are granted mercy and justice. Any who take up arms against us will be met with swift retribution. Spread the word." A chorus of bowed heads, salutes, and uncertain murmurs follows. Robb descends the dais, letting the Iron Throne stand empty for the moment. The Great John meets his eye, half smiling. "So, do we call you King of the Seven Kingdoms now?" His tone is jesting, but also searching for direction. Robb shakes his head, letting out a breath. "I am king in the north. We'll see what the rest of Westeros decides. First, we must restore order." He glances at Sansa and Arya, both battered by trauma. He senses their longing for home, that faraway place of winter snows and simpler truths. His heart yearns for it too. Perhaps once the realm sees that the Lannisters' grip is broken, the North can withdraw in peace. The future feels uncertain, as though the tapestry has been torn and must be woven anew. But at least the immediate nightmare is over. He beckons to Arya, who rushes to him. He folds her into a hug. "I thought you lost," he murmurs into her hair. She clings to him fiercely. He feels her trembling, though she tries to hide it. So young, and yet so hardened by these horrors. "I'm all right," she says, though her voice shakes. I was so scared for Sansa. I saw." Her words break off, too raw to continue. He nods, pressing a kiss to her brow. "We're together now. That's what matters." Sansa stands a few paces off, leaning on their mother's arm. She looks fragile, the smear of blood on her neck crusting where the cut was. Yet there's a glimmer in her eyes that Robb recognizes from childhood. Resilience, the quiet strength she never realized she possessed. She meets his gaze, tears still shining. "Thank you," she whispers. "I didn't think I'd ever be free of him." Caitlin gently squeezes Sansa's shoulder. "We have many wounds to mend, but you are alive, my sweet girl. That is blessing enough for now." A hush grows as men come and go with fresh reports. The city is slowly settling, the gold cloaks largely throwing down arms or vanishing. Marguerite dispatches some of her retinue to search the Red Keep's living quarters for any sign of Cersei. From the scraps of rumor they collect, it appears the Queen Mother may have fled to the royal apartments or a hidden passage, but no one has found her. Some claim she fled the city entirely, though how she might manage that is unclear. Robb can't dwell on that just yet. He delegates Tyrell and the Great John to handle security measures, gather the rest of the lords, and ensure no more sabotage. Then he turns to his mother and sisters. "Let's get you tended to. We'll find a secure chamber where Sansa's wound can be dressed properly. Arya, I want you fed and given a chance to rest." Arya seems about to protest, but the exhaustion in her eyes betrays her. She nods, chewing her lip. They move together out of the throne room, stepping into the corridor where more northern guards salute them. Whispers of "the king in the north" follow Robb, and for once he doesn't cringe. He embraces that mantle if it means protecting his family. They find a suite of rooms on a higher level, apparently used by a Lannister cousin, now vacant in the chaos. Robb orders the men to stand guard outside. Inside, dust floats in the slanted sunlight. The furniture is ornate, the bedding rich. Caitlin helps Sansa settle into a cushioned chair. A Tyrell maester, one who accompanied Tarly's forces, arrives quickly, setting out bandages and ointments. He examines Sansa's neck and shoulder with gentle hands, pronouncing that the cuts will heal if she rests and keeps the wound clean. Arya watches anxiously, nibbling a broken nail. Robb stands near, removing his gauntlets and letting them thud onto a small table. His arms ache from the fight with the Hound, from the blow that hammered his shoulder, but his sister's safety is a salve stronger than milk of the poppy. Outside the windows, the city sprawls under a light haze of smoke, the afternoon sun gleaming on rooftops. The worst of the fighting has ended, though pockets surely remain. In the distance, horns sound, short blasts that likely signal more Tyrell or Stark patrols establishing control. Robb exhales, feeling the tide of war recede. When the maester finishes, Sansa leans back, her face pale but calmer. She quietly thanks him. Caitlin stands, pressing a palm to Sansa's cheek, then moves to Robb. She takes in the dented armor, the blood spatters, the exhaustion in his eyes. She rests her hand on his breastplate with motherly concern. "You must change and let someone see to your wounds as well. These past hours have been brutal." Robb forces a wan smile. "I'm fine, mother. Others have it worse. But yes, soon." He lifts his gaze to Arya, who watches them with parted lips. "Tell me, how did you survive here all this time?" He's not even sure how many months it has been since they received any news of her. Arya hesitates, then shrugs. I hid. I changed clothes and tried to sneak around. They locked me up sometimes, but they didn't realize who I was at first. Then that wretched old man recognized me, and they threw me down in a cellar. I escaped once, but the gold cloaks recaptured me, threw me in a different part of the keep. I just kept fighting to get out." Her voice trembles with bitterness and relief. "I thought you were all gone." Robb's chest tightens. "We searched for you, but the city was vast." "I'm sorry." He sees how her experiences have carved new angles into her young face. She's grown harder, older in ways no girl of her age should. But she's alive. That's a gift as great as any victory. Caitlin touches Arya's hair, tears in her eyes. "We have you back. That is all that matters now." A soldier knocks on the door frame, face grim but respectful. "Your Grace, we found more Lannister loyalists near the Tower of the Hand. They surrendered. Among them, a few staff who claim the Queen was last seen heading for the dungeons." Robb's heart stirs with renewed tension. She may be searching for a way out, or for some cache of wildfire. She threatened to burn this city once before, or so the rumors go. He can't forget what the Mad King did, nor the sacks of King's Landing in the past. If Cersei is as desperate as he suspects, she might do something catastrophic. But Sansa needs him, Arya needs him, and the city is large. The Great John appears behind the soldier, stepping into the room unbidden. We're organizing squads to search systematically. If the queen is skulking in the dungeons, we'll root her out. You should remain here, gather your strength. Nuss. Robb almost agrees, but the memory of how close they came to losing Sansa spurs him. If Cersei is cornered, she might do something monstrous. I'll come, he says, shaking off the fatigue. I need to be sure we contain this threat. Arya protests. Let me go. But Robb shakes his head. Stay here with Mother and Sansa, please. Her expression is stormy, but she doesn't argue further. As she sees Sansa's pale face, the dried blood on her own clothes, she nods reluctantly. Catelyn meets Robb's gaze, understanding the necessity. Go, do what you must, then return. We'll be waiting. She leans in to kiss his brow, as though he's still a boy. He closes his eyes briefly, drawing on her love for strength. Then he sets his jaw, gathers his sword and shield, and departs with the Greyjoy. They move down the corridors, flanked by soldiers. The Red Keep's labyrinthine passages are slowly being secured. Doors thrown wide, bunk rooms emptied. Terrified servants huddling or fleeing. Everywhere Robb goes, men bow or nod, calling him Your Grace or King Stark. He tries to keep them focused on searching for any sign of sabotage or hidden weapon stores. The Greyjoy suggests they start at the main dungeon entrances near the back of the keep, a route that descends to some of the oldest tunnels. The thought of stepping into that subterranean gloom makes Robb's stomach churn. But better to act than wait for Cersei's final revenge. They pass through a heavy iron door, into torchlit steps that spiral downward. Soldiers have preceded them, clearing each level. The stench of old rot and stale air intensifies. Hollow cells line the walls, some with rusted bars that have collapsed over time. The place is quiet, haunted by an occasional drip of water or scuttle of vermin. Robb glances at the Greyjoy, who wrinkles his nose in distaste. At the lowest level of these dungeons, the flickering light reveals a wide corridor that leads to the black cells. If rumors are true, a soldier stands guard there. When Robb approaches, the man stands at attention. No sign of the queen here, Your Grace. Just empties. He indicates the row of cells, all vacant except for the pathetic remains of prior prisoners. The Greyjoy frowns. If not here, then perhaps the labyrinth below the Red Keep. They say there are hidden passages from the days of the Targaryens. Maybe she found one, could lead all the way to the city's outskirts, or to the royal sept. Robb feels an unease coil in his gut. Cersei's cunning is legendary. She might have a plan to slip away, to rally Lannister loyalists outside the city. That would prolong the war. But he can't spare more men to chase shadows in the bowels of the keep. We'll post more guards, he decides. Scour every passage we can. If she's down here, she won't remain hidden for long. With that, they leave the gloom of the dungeons behind, re-emerging into corridors where nervous servants keep watch. The Greyjoy's expression is one of subdued excitement. We have the false king. If the queen escapes, so be it. It won't change the realm's new order. Robb nods absently, though a shadow of worry lingers. He imagines Cersei seething, plotting vengeance. He wonders if they'll face another cunning Lannister scheme. But for now, the city is theirs, and Joffrey is captive. That must suffice. They return to the upper floors, where the day drags on in a haze of securing the keep, gathering prisoners, and sending out heralds to announce that King's Landing has fallen to House Stark and House Tyrell. A hush of awe descends on the small folk. Some cheer the end of Joffrey's cruel reign, others hide, waiting to see what new horrors these victors may bring. Near dusk, Robb finally finds time to shed his battered armor and let a healer examine the bruises along his ribs. He sits on a wooden bench in a lavish bedchamber that once belonged to some Lannister retainer. Grey Wind lies on the floor, resting his muzzle on massive paws. Outside the balcony doors, The city glows with the orange haze of a setting sun. The wind carries the smell of smoke and the pungent tang of the sea. The healer prods a swelling on Robb's shoulder, making him wince. "You'll live, your grace, though you need rest. The bruise is deep. I can bind it if you wish." Robb nods, letting the man apply a salve and tight bandage. The pain is constant, but he's relieved it isn't worse. He stands with a weary sigh, buckling on a simple sword belt rather than the heavier war gear. All the while, his mind churns with the tasks ahead. He must see to Sansa's well-being, provide for Arya, coordinate with Tarly about the city's governance. The region's lords will demand an audience. Word must be sent to Edmure Tully at River Run, to the northern lords scattered across the south, to Winterfell, if ravens still fly that far. And always, the threat of Tywin Lannister looms. Stepping onto the balcony, he looks across the rooftops. Thin columns of smoke still rise from the neighborhoods damaged in the fighting. He silently thanks the gods it was not worse. War easily becomes a conflagration that devours entire cities. He thinks of Sansa's quiet bravery, of Arya's defiance, of his mother's unwavering resolve. He pictures Ned Stark's face, remembering the day he said farewell in Winterfell's courtyard. "At last, father, we have some measure of justice, but not the peace we truly want." That he will have to forge carefully, day by day. Below, the courtyard bustles with men carrying crates of bread, distributing food to the stunned smallfolk who creep out from their hiding places. Tyrell knights stand sentinel, ensuring no chaos raid nights. The Great John's booming laughter echoes from somewhere below, a rare moment of levity after so much bloodshed. Robb breathes in the salt air, letting the last of the day's sun warm his face. Yes, the realm is battered and broken, and tomorrow will test them anew. But for tonight, at least, they have prevailed. He turns to Grey Wind, who rises, ears perked. "Come," Robb murmurs, moving back into the room. He needs to see Sansa, to check on Arya, to reassure them both. In the corridor, he finds Catelyn just emerging from the suite where the girls rest. She offers a tired smile. They're together, talking. Arya won't leave Sansa's side. Robb nods, relief washing over him. "Let's go in." They enter a warm chamber lit by lanterns. Sansa sits propped on pillows with a bandage at her neck. Arya sits cross-legged at the foot of the bed, telling her sister in hushed tones about something that happened in the days she hid in the keep. Their heads turn at Robb's entrance. Arya scrambles up, and Sansa tries to stand, but thinks better of it. She greets him with a soft smile, though tears still shimmer in her lashes. Robb approaches, placing a careful hand on Sansa's shoulder. "How are you feeling?" She manages a small nod. "Better. It still hurts, but the maester gave me something for the pain. Arya has been keeping me company, telling me about father." Her voice breaks slightly, and Arya looks away, swallowing. Pang hits Robb's chest. "We'll do right by father," he says softly. "We have Joffrey, and soon the entire realm will know what he did. Our father's honor won't be forgotten." Sansa's eyes glisten with tears, but a shadow of determination crosses her features. "Thank you," she whispers, "for coming for me. For not forgetting me." Robb cups her hand in his. "Never." Arya watches them, hugging her arms around herself. He remembers a time when Arya chased cats around Winterfell's halls, unburdened by nightmares. Those days feel centuries away, but at least she's here alive. Outside, the last of the sunlight fades into twilight. The room grows quieter, the lamplight becoming the primary glow on the red and gold walls. Robb can almost feel the hush of a kingdom between one day and the next, the cusp of a new order. The Tyrell alliance stands, albeit tenuously, and the city belongs to the king in the north. Strange to be so far from the snows of Winterfell and hold so much power. For a moment, he wonders what his father would say if he could see this scene. Ned Stark's children reunited in the heart of the South, the Lannisters toppled. Then a light knock on the door breaks the stillness. A guard peers in. "Your Grace, Lady Margaery Tyrell is here." She wishes a word. Robb glances at his sisters. Sansa is drifting into a doze, lulled by exhaustion and the sedative. Arya stands as if to accompany him, but he gently motions for her to stay and keep watch over Sansa. He steps into the corridor, where Margaery waits in a simple gown of green. Her hair pulled back, she curtsies, a polite smile on her lips that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "Your Grace," she says, "I trust your sisters are safe now." He nods, still on guard. "Yes, thanks to all of us. You have my gratitude, Lady Margaery. Please walk with me." She gestures for him to lead, and they stroll through a corridor lit by torches. Guards stand at intervals, acknowledging the pair with bows of head. Margaery's voice is hushed, aware of eavesdroppers. "It gladdens me that House Tyrell could help bring an end to Joffrey's rule. The people of this city were starved and terrorized. My grandmother would approve of this swift conclusion." Then, Robb studies her face, noting the flicker of calculation. "Your men fought bravely. They'll be remembered." He wonders if she has come to push for a next step, perhaps a betrothal or a political arrangement. The Tyrells always have aims. The gold of the Reach can prop up any throne. "Is there something you wish to discuss?" Margaery folds her hands. "Yes. My Lord Father and I would like to discuss the future of the realm. Our men are loyal to you, of course. But the question arises, do you mean to hold the Iron Throne yourself? Or shall we name a new king for the southern kingdoms, while the north remains independent?" The Lords of the Reach are curious. It's the question Robb has avoided for months. Does he wear two crowns now, or does he remain the king in the north alone? He exhales. "I honestly haven't decided. My father served the realm, but the north has paid dearly. Perhaps it's time we truly parted ways." Margaery's gaze flicks over him. "Yet many small folk in the south might clamor for a strong ruler to replace the Lannisters. The Tyrells believe you have that strength, Your Grace. And if you declared your right to the throne, many might rally to it. You have proven your cause is just." Now, he feels the burden of these words. Part of him balks at the notion of sitting that monstrous throne. Another part sees the logic. If he leaves the city to chaos, what was the point of dethroning Joffrey? "We will speak more on this," he says carefully. "Once the city is stable and my family as well. I need time, Lady Margaery." She inclines her head gracefully. "Of course. My family stands ready to support you, whichever path you choose." There's a spark of something in her eyes, ambition, or perhaps respect. "I'll leave you to your duties, Your Grace." She dips a curtsy and moves away, footsteps echoing on the polished floor. Robb watches her go, uncertain how he feels about the alliance that has brought him so far. Returning to the suite, he steps inside to find Arya asleep beside Sansa, both curled together on the bed. His mother sits in a chair, eyes heavy-lidded with fatigue. She looks up as he enters, a faint smile curving her lips. "They've been through so much," she murmurs. "We all have." Robb nods, quietly crossing the room. "We can finally breathe," he says, though a part of him knows there's still more to do. The realm must be led, or else chaos will claim it anew. He sets aside that thought for a moment, kneeling by the bed to tuck a blanket around Arya's shoulders. The sight of his sisters sleeping, safe at last, fills him with a quiet, fierce gratitude. They are the reason he fought this war. Family, honor, love. Outside, the calls of soldiers drift up from the courtyard, barking orders to each other. The city draws its first night of uneasy rest under new rule. Joffrey sits in chains, awaiting whatever fate Robb deems suitable. Tywin is still at large, but the capital is wrested from Lannister hands. The Red Keep feels almost tranquil now, in this bubble of lamplight. Robb lowers himself onto a bench, massaging the tightness in his shoulder. Catelyn watches him with gentle concern. "You should rest," she says softly. "Or at least close your eyes. The morrow will bring new challenges." He inclines his head. "I will. But first, let me just watch over them." "Me." And so he does, letting the quiet settle around him, letting the tension ebb from his weary limbs. Gray wind dozes near the hearth. Shadows flicker on the tapestries. Each breath he takes seems to pull him further from the storm of steel and blood. For this moment, in the hush of these candle-lit walls, the Starks have reclaimed something precious. Together, they have broken the hold of the false king. They have captured King's Landing, forging a new destiny that will shape the Seven Kingdoms. At length, Robb leans his head back, eyes half-lidded, and drifts in that quiet. The city and the war swirl beyond these chambers, but here for just a breath of time, he is a brother, a son, something more than the king in the north, more than the boy forced to bear a crown. He rests with the knowledge that come dawn, the burdens of rule will press upon him again, but he will face them as a Stark. For that name carries a weight that steel cannot break. He listens to Arya's soft snore, sees Sansa's chest rise and fall, senses his mother's presence. He thinks of Ned and how proud he would be to see the children safe. Gently, Robb closes his eyes and allows himself a moment's peace. Tomorrow, the realm will demand everything he has. Tonight, he is allowed to hope that the worst is behind them, that some measure of justice has been won. And with hope in his heart, he drifts into a light sleep. The echoes of a conquered city settling into memory, the promise of a new day just beyond the dark.